I reject what Destiny says about sexual compatibility. You would have to expound on what that means. It's very important that you know that you're sexually compatible with a woman before you marry the woman. I don't even know what the hell that means. The chances are pretty good you're going to be sexually compatible with a woman. There's two parts to this, and both of you have the necessary ones. So I just have no clue what that even is about.
Hold on, I'm sorry. PIV is penis in vagina. The dick goes into the pussy.
Oh, I don't know what
You linked me something from the Institute for Family Studies. I'm reading down here through the data, and I'm kind of reading through some of the conclusions that the author is drawing. And there's a couple of interesting things about the survey that the person brings up that I wasn't even aware of. First of all, by the data you provided, which I'm assuming is already biased in your favor, that's not true. And then secondly, the reasons to explain
it
isn't...
Is premarital sex a good or bad thing? Say what's up to Zen, Destiny, Alex, Kevin, BPF Andrew, the co-owner of the channel.
So we've done this debate before, and I actually did a bit of research since the last debate. And it turns out that a lot of stuff that the Crucible argues isn't actually true. The big claim they make is married people are happier. The science behind this is kind of misleading. First of all, the big confusion here is that married people are in general more likely to get married. So I mean, happier people are more likely to get married, right? So is this a correlation or causation thing? And that's one big issue with that kind of study. Also, they found a big issue in the studies that both people answered when their partner was in the room. So can you imagine what you're going to say when your wife or husband is in the room? Yeah, everything is happy. What was really interesting that they observed is when the husband left the room, the wife's happiness went a lot lower. So all these really happy wives and these happy couples weren't so happy when their spouse was in the room. And lastly, there's some evidence that single women might be happier than married women. You combine that with the fact that 50% of marriages end divorce, and is far, far from certain that marriage is going to make you happier. The other big thing they talk about is STD risk. Well, you don't want to get STDs. According to a study, there's actually no difference in STD risk between monogamous and non-monogamous couples, because monogamous couples are less likely to use condoms or get tested. It's also pretty ironic for Andrew to use this argument as he chain smokes cigarettes. Sorry. And so what we're left with is just virtue signaling and scare tactics. Even though both of us had premarital sex, you shouldn't do it. With a massive incel epidemic we have going on and many men committing suicide at alarming rates, the last thing we should be doing is shaming men into doing something that is literally every single person on this panel has done. I don't know why I'm stuttering today, but anyway, you get the gist of it.
It's cool. I stutter too, Alex. You're all good. Destiny, you can go next.
I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said? Alex hit the nail right on the head with every statement that he made. Usually when people cite these studies about family happiness, I feel like they're usually they're not looking at all of the factors involved. Just because somebody is more likely to get divorced or not likely to get divorced doesn't necessarily mean the marriage is better. And then off the back of that, something that I will say is I think sexual compatibility is an important part of a relationship. The idea of entering some kind of lifelong commitment or huge relationship where you haven't actually tested any of the sexual compatibility yet, I think is ill-advised. And I think most people that have long-term relationships would agree with that. So that's the only thing I'll add to that.
Perfect. A record 30-second opening statement from the king of the internet. Very good. Hey, just before the right side of the team starts making their opening statements, please remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this all with your friends. We very much appreciate it. And remember to use @TheCrucible, or if you're on Playing with Fire's channel, @PlayingWithFire, so I don't miss your questions that I can field at the end for our debaters. Andrew or Zen, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'll let Zen open first.
Okay. Yeah, like Alex said, this is like our third or fourth round on the same topic, relatively speaking. And I don't know. I guess Alex just keeps having to bring back stronger and stronger opponents, depending on how you view them. But yeah, as far as the topic goes, we're kind of going to be approaching it from the same angle. Obviously, myself and Andrew are Orthodox Christians, and that's where we're viewing our moral paradigm from. So the question of is premarital sex immoral? Obviously, we're going to say yes, because that's what aligns with our faith. But in terms of the debate, I know that you guys are not Orthodox Christians. You don't view your morals through a religious lens. So we are willing to step into your worldview as we have in the past. And really, when it comes to morality in the non-deontological worldview of Christianity or some other religion, you're going to have to be reasoning, outcomes-based, consequentialism, utilitarianism, some form or another, which will be based on the empirics and the outcomes of what you deem to be preferable is what would be moral and what we ought do, essentially. And really, it's not just about happiness, because I think that's really subjective. It's really hard to actually pinpoint what happiness is. We can also point to things like the marriage rate and the divorce rate is higher. The marriage rate is higher. The divorce rate is lower if you remain abstinent before marriage, and ultimately the outcomes that you guys deem preferable, like domestic abuse, what would you say, like cheating, substance abuse, all these things are lower when the partners remain abstinent before going into a marriage. So if you deem those to be preferable, there's not really an argument as to why we should have premarital sex or why that is a good thing, other than, I guess, just live and let live, just take a libertarian stance on everything, which ultimately falls to I have no argument for why we ought do or ought not do anything, because I can just change it on a dime whenever it benefits my pleasure receptors. So I guess if you're a hedonist, you can just claim hedonism, but then consequently you have to forfeit the debate. So that's kind of where I'm at. So that's it.
Okay. Is my up then?
Yes, sir.
All right. So first, I reject what Destiny says about sexual compatibility. He would have to expound on what that means. It's very important that you know that you're sexually compatible with a woman before you marry the woman. I don't even know what the hell that means. The chances are pretty good you're going to be sexually compatible with a woman. There's two parts to this, and both of you have the necessary ones. So I just have no clue what that even is about. Next, when we move on to the empiricism, I think that Alex is just picking and choosing the things that he wants to back up his consistent Coomerism, and the things that he wants, which is basically to teach men how to pick up young women and have sex with them and then go about their day. And that's the end of that. And this has led to mass societal decadence for sure. You can't argue that society is better since the institution of marriage has been under attack. I don't even understand really what Destiny's position on marriage is. There's no actual reason for the guy to even be married. What's the point of it, other than for maybe tax purposes? I don't even get it. It makes no sense to me on its face. What is the point to that? I'm not trying to make it personal. I really just want to know. I don't understand. Is marriage is a commitment, a bonding between two people for life, and of course that pair bonding, if you stray from the marriage, that's basically the crux of the argument here. So I have no idea why you would want to get behind Alex on the pickup community and the red pill. It's obviously scam. The whole thing's basically a huge scam in the pickup community. I mean, we kind of know this. Most of these guys, they're not able to actually teach ugly incel idiots how to go pick up women. They basically sell them huge programs so that they'll buy them, and that's about it. So we from our side have been consistently confused as to why it is that Alex and the pickup community are so adverse to marriage in the first place, or why they think that there's just nothing wrong. Of course, even logically, you should be able to deduce that marriage is better for you than just having sex with a bunch of random strangers. It's obviously not a great idea. So we've been consistent in our message, and we're prepared to take yours on. So
I think before we start, it's important to for Destiny and Alex, are you guys saying that premarital sex is good, or is it morally neutral? Because I think we need to first establish that before we have a conversation. So go ahead.
I mean, I would say it's morally neutral. Like, it's good insofar as it can help a relationship, but I don't know if I'd say it's like morally good. Like, you ought to have sex before marriage.
Okay. Alex,
yeah, probably similar to Destiny. I mean, I think it's a good idea before you marry someone, you make that big commitment, that you find out if you have sexual compatibility. But yeah, I don't think it's like you're a better person if you have premarital sex or something like that.
Okay. I just wanted to establish that first to make sure that, I guess in a way that's sort of like the null hypothesis, right? Is that premarital sex isn't good or bad, it's just neutral. So
yeah, that's right.
Andrew and Zen, you guys believe that premarital sex is bad. So I'd like to I think we should start there. Just give your opinions on that other than what you've just already said.
I mean, we already gave our opinions on it. So if the claim from the other side is just essentially to say we don't have any preference on it one way or another, then what would they be adverse to our ought claim for? Do they even care? I mean, is that something your side even cares about, that we think that it was better for society as a whole in general?
Well, real quick, so
there's
if you say we have no preference, we didn't state we didn't have a preference. If you mean more specifically that we don't have a moral preference, neutrality is a moral preference. If you're asserting that you believe something is good, then usually you are also simultaneously asserting that the opposite of that is bad. And if we're asserting that something is neutral, then we would obviously contest the opposite of good, which is bad. So when you say we don't have a preference, we do have a preference, specifically a moral preference, and that moral preference is one that is neutral, which would resist your negative claim towards doing it. Yeah.
I'm hearing a little bit of echo. I'm sorry. I don't know who it's coming off
you.
of.
I didn't hear any.
Okay.
But
yeah, I'll kind of put it like this. I think yoga is neutral. I don't think everyone should do yoga. But if someone was going around saying, don't do yoga, yoga is so bad, I would take an issue with that position, because I'm like, there's nothing wrong with people doing yoga. In fact, there might be some benefits to people doing it.
But if we can take something that is identifiably negative for the family unit or the strength of a marriage versus something that is identifiably positive for the family unit and the strength of a marriage, we would prefer the positive, right?
I mean, tautologically, we'd prefer positives over negatives. We would just have to show that those things that are positive are indeed positive, and those things that are negative are indeed negative. And then we would have to demonstrate that there's a causal link between the negatives. So, for instance, one of the big claims that is often made is that it leads to higher rates of divorce. And it's just taken like de facto that divorce is bad, but that's not true. Not all divorce is bad. Some divorce is incredibly good. Some marriage is incredibly bad. So we would have to dig into that a little bit to find out what we mean when we say good or bad.
Yeah, so our position on that's pretty simple too. We don't claim that all divorce is bad. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons why a divorce should be granted. One of them would be infidelity. Another one might be spousal abuse. These have always been traditional claims inside the church that you would be granted a divorce for. They've also been claims even before no-fault divorce that you could get granted a divorce for. That no-fault divorce in and of itself has led to this problem, I think, of women being able to just kind of willy-nilly decide that they want a man of greater status or whatever and get a divorce. There's almost no penalty, and the courts favor them. Would you guys disagree that that's true?
None of that is relevant to what we're arguing. We're talking.
Well, I mean, we're just trying to clarify our position here. So,
well, the positions we're talking about is whether or not premarital sex is good or bad. Whether or not some people are getting divorced to man upgrade. That's
okay. Well, then, but why did you bring up divorce then?
Well,
that
divorce because Zen Shapiro in the intro brought up divorce as though that was a key performance indicator to being good or bad. He's like, more divorce means more bad, and longer marriage means more good. And I would contest that. I'd say there's probably some cases where divorce is good, and there's some cases where divorce is bad. But just going by that figure alone is not good.
We can generally point to and say that more divorce societal wide, is unideal. We want a family. We want a society that has a strong, intact family unit that isn't just getting divorced left and right in 50% of marriages.
No,
right?
I would reject that. That needs to be shown. So, for instance, a society with 5% divorce might be better than a society with 1% divorce. It might be the case that the 5% that do divorce are divorcing from marriages that would otherwise lead to negative outcomes, maybe more abusive households for children, maybe children created that are being subject to negative conditions. But divorce or marriage, neither of those on their face are positive or negative. You would need to make an additional argument to substantiate that, saying that a society
so you
that
don't think that marriage is good for society, like more people getting married is actually good for society and staying married. You don't think that?
Asking me if more people getting married is good is a fundamentally different question than asking me if all marriage is good. More
we're
people
not
getting
asking you if all marriage is good.
No, but you're implying it by saying that more marriage is good.
No, we're not implying it either.
Okay, I'll follow if you want. So yes, more people getting married is probably good.
And staying married, particularly.
Is probably good, but not in all cases.
Like just generally, not always, but generally speaking, like BPF pointed out, there are exceptions here where it's justified to get divorced and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that was irrelevant somehow.
I want to actually go back to sexual compatibility, because it seems like Andrew doesn't know what sexual compatibility is. So maybe we could explain to him. Do you really not know what it means, or are we just being obtuse?
No, I really don't know what you mean by it. What does that mean? Sexual incompatibility.
Have you ever had sex with a girl who was into something totally different than you?
I don't like what.
I don't know, dude. I don't hide in your bedroom, but like, you know, like where you did not have a good sexual experience because she was into something totally different than you.
Let's keep it really simple. Let's just say libido. Somebody wants to have sex 1 time a week. Somebody wants to have sex 7 times a week. Something like a mismatch like that.
Okay. So you think that you have to test the waters beforehand, even though we know that women could just lie, right? They could be like, no, my libido is really high. And then post-marriage go, no, not really, though. We were just kidding.
Well, you can find
out. And now you're married and you're fucked, right? So it's like, that seems like a failure of an argument to me, to just be like, well, because they're letting you have sex with them pre-marriage, that you're still going to have the same libido rate.
Okay.
You know, it's just silly to me.
Well, let's start off with this. Do you now understand what sexual compatibility is?
Well,
no, I don't know what you mean by it. I'm just asking.
I think it's a very broad
term.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
People who are sexually compatible, they have the same. They're into the same shit. They have similar sex drives. They have good sexual chemistry. Like, I don't know how you don't know what that is.
Well, I don't know how you don't know what that is. Isn't an argument. I don't know what you mean by it. I
okay,
just want to know
more
what you
fundamental.
mean by it.
Is there a difference to you between good sex and bad sex?
Yeah.
Okay, so insofar as sexual compatibility is defined as you being more likely to have good sex than bad sex with somebody, would you accept that as a definition for sexual compatibility?
Certainly, if that's what you mean by it, we can accept that as being your definition of it.
Okay.
Why is that fundamentally important to marriage, though? Unless you think that men are only getting married for the purposes of having good sex.
Well, don't you think sex is an important part of marriage?
I do think it's an important part of marriage, but I think that the metric for what good sex is kind of different for everybody and still pretty broad. Yeah. We'll accept your definition, but that doesn't mean we agree that that having good sex is somehow the foundation or the pivot point for marriage. There's people who seem to be in happy marriages who have no sex, right?
Well, first of all, I would argue that those are not happy marriages and are divorces waiting to happen. But second of all, okay, so you did
divorce
say
is
that
bad, though. You agree that divorce is bad? You do agree to that, Alex?
No,
yeah, that's what it sounded like to me.
Divorce was waiting to happen was stated in a derogatory way. That's why.
Well, the divorce here would be bad, but the idea would be that divorce is avoidable if you would have had premarital sex. You could have avoided that.
I don't know how you're actually going to be able to argue that, though.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm still waiting.
Well, that's literally what I'm trying to do right now. Okay, so you acknowledge that sex is a key part of a marriage, right? So don't you think it's important to find out if you guys are into the same shit, if you guys have that sexual compatibility before you make the biggest decision of your life?
I don't think generally the older that you get with your wife, the more this bizarre notion of like mind-blowing hours-long sex is something that's just ingratiated in people's brains. We live very busy lives. You know what I mean? There's also, have you ever heard like afternoon delight, right? You just go home, tear one off real quick and leave. That's not like the utilitarian version of sex. You just roll in, pound it real quick, go out the door, that kind of thing. Like I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean by these broad terms is all I'm saying. We want to be as charitable to your definition of what these things are as we possibly can be, though. We do.
You did just say that you think sex is a key part of our marriage.
I think that sex is an important part, especially for men. I think that that's true.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So
but the thing is that said, that doesn't mean that doing fetishized shit and things like that's necessarily
an argument. No one is saying
either way. I think we could safely say that not getting divorced is either at the same level or even more prioritized for men than just having good sex. Because getting no, it's not. This is not off track. Getting divorced is literally life ruining. Having a few bad experiences in bed, which ultimately you're going to figure it out if you're married to the person.
Yeah, but bad sex might lead to divorce.
Okay, but we don't have any empirics to justify that.
Yeah. Are people mass reporting that they're leaving and having divorces? Men are not reporting that they're initiating divorces because they're having bad sex.
Do you not think that having like dead bedroom situations aren't things that can contribute to troubles in a marriage?
They can.
Okay, if they can contribute to troubles in a marriage can lead to people getting divorced, yeah?
Can, but that doesn't mean that it's a large reason or a large factor for it.
Okay. I didn't know that I needed to like establish this. My bad. Holy me, sorry.
Why would you think that you didn't need to establish this?
Because it's pretty obvious to people that like being sexually compatible and having good sex in a relationship in some ways can be foundational to a relationship. I mean, even in the Bible, they would say that it's the way that a man and woman relate to each other sexually is like almost a God's gift to the family. Like it's a really important way that two people can relate to each other. That when that fundamental breakdown happens, when a man and a woman aren't having good sex in a relationship, that can lead downstream to a whole bunch of other issues as well, where people feel neglected, they feel not taken care of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these things can compound into a whole bunch of other relationship problems. But the issue is unlike other aspects of a relationship, like conversation or going out and doing hobbies, et cetera, you kind of have to have sex to figure out if you are sexually compatible before a relationship begins.
Why do you have to have sex?
Because you don't know what it's like
if you're sexually compatible.
Because
what
you don't
talking
know
about.
Because
it doesn't even make sense.
Because you don't.
What are you talking about?
Okay, if you're going to ask the same question 3 times, because you don't know if you're sexually compatible with a person until you've had sex with them, because you can't. Because you haven't.
How do you know that though? That's what I keep asking you. How do you know that?
Okay, let's say hypothetically, let's say you have a woman and she's really into penis and vagina, PIV sex, and she gets married to a man and she discovers that he has a 1-inch penis. Do you think that he's going to have the ability to satisfy her in a way that makes her happy with the marriage?
Well, I think that they would probably have established the groundwork for them not wanting to have group sex before they got married if he's not into group sex, Destiny. But them actually coming together and having sexual...
Really quickly.
I need to call 911 because I just had a stroke? Or what do you think I just said?
I think that you just said what happens if if a woman's into some type of other sexual activity than the man is.
No, hold on. I'm sorry. PIV is penis in vagina. The dick goes into the pussy.
Oh, I don't know what the Coomer terms are.
I define it for you, and then I use the abbreviation.
Yeah,
say penis in vagina. Sorry. So let's say that
she's into sex.
Yeah,
she likes sex.
Gotcha.
She likes to have
heterosexual sex.
Yeah, heterosexual sex. The dick goes into the pussy, and that's a big thing for her, and it's a big way for her to feel like sexually pleased. And she finds out after marriage that her husband has a 1-inch penis. This is something that could have been discovered beforehand if they had had premarital sex, but
this actually happened. There's a video.
And you think that that's going to be the deal breaker?
Could be, yes. Bad sex can be a deal breaker.
Do you think that's going to be a commonality, that she's way into penis and vagina sex, and then we're just going to find out that most men have a 1-inch penis? I mean, this seems like a stretch, dude.
Well, first of all, this happened on TikTok. There was a video where literally this chick was like, I married this guy. He said that he doesn't want to have premarital sex. And then I found out he had a micro penis. I feel so deceived. I'm thinking of getting a divorce. Second of all, I just quickly searched Google, and lack of sex is one of the biggest reasons for divorce, a bad sex life. So there's definitely something to a bad sex life, married people not having sex and divorce. And you guys think that divorce is bad. So therefore, you would want couples to have good sex lives.
Yeah, but we're not establishing whether or not having a dead bedroom is going to be problematic to a marriage. We've already said that could lead to problems inside the marriage. Okay. What we're saying is that you don't have to test that sexual compatibility doesn't have to be tested for pre-marriage. That's where we're saying that there's an absurdity. We don't understand why that's necessary. Like we're made to have sex. You recognize this, right?
Yeah, but different people have different sexual sexual preferences.
Yeah, but I think there's an argument to be made, and I don't know how we're going to justify any of this in any direction, but I think there's an argument to be made that bad sex is probably caused by other things, like the neglect and the distaste of the partner, the loneliness, whatever, the fighting, the arguing. A lot of the times, that is what will cause the bad sex, like when you're not happy in your relationship otherwise.
Okay, second thing. Let's say man and woman get married, and the man really likes blowjobs, and the woman's like, "No, I never do that."
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that probably would have been established before they got married.
Why would you be talking about sex but not having? So, is that okay for you to have like detailed conversations?
Why would it be problematic to talk about sex even when you're not having sex?
I don't know. You're the one that said it's like immoral to do it. So
we're talking about having sex, not talking about having sex.
I don't even understand this line here.
You think it would be like a good idea for like, I don't know, a potential couple to sit down, have like a detailed...
I need to get out of here. I didn't know that we were going to... I didn't know that this was the level of
I don't know
fucking
this is
debauchery that we were going to, guys. I'm so sorry.
We're just simply saying we can point to couples that remain abstinent prior to marriage typically remain intact and are stronger, less likely to get divorced. Like, these are good things, right?
Well, no, we don't know if those are good things.
Well, then I guess that's where the debate actually is. Like,
then we would have to have like reported happiness or something. You already agreed with my premise at the start. You already agreed that getting divorced isn't necessarily bad. So
I didn't agree with. No. I said that there are exceptions where divorce is justified. Like if there's some sort of spousal abuse or adultery, whatever it may be. But generally speaking, on the aggregate, we want society to thrive in the family unit, in the family structure, where there's less divorce going on. Like, that would be ideal, I think, generally speaking, for most people.
I also
am I wrong about that?
think that it's super reasonable, and that most people, before they got married, will talk about their expectations in the bedroom, whether they're virgins or not virgins. And I don't know why you guys think otherwise. That's a completely reasonable conversation. I think almost everybody would engage in before they got married, to be honest with you.
Well, you just said earlier that a girl can lie. So wouldn't you want to then find out?
Yeah, but she can lie either way. She can tell you.
It's a lot harder to lie in the bedroom than it is just having a conversation.
It's a lot harder to lie, than doing it in conversation. Let me phrase the question like this.
Why would it be harder to lie? A woman can pretend that she's enjoying the hell out of any of the sex you're having pre-marriage, and then post-marriage just stop having it with you. There's literally no way for you to determine any of this.
Her vagina, there is, dude. When a woman is having an orgasm, her vagina tightens, she shakes. There's some visible signs of an orgasm. Like, it's not rocket science. You can tell when a girl's having an orgasm or if she's faking it. So
yeah, but she can just stop screwing you, Alex, post-marriage.
She could, there's always
whether the sex is the most mind-blowing thing you've ever had in your life. Pre-marriage,
we can speak in probabilities. Is there a chance that somebody could be incredibly deceitful and change post-marriage? Sure, that's a possibility.
It happens constantly.
You can say that it happens constantly, but as long as that number is less than 100%, which it is, it's not happening every single time. Having sex with somebody before marriage can be a way to get an idea of what a sexual relationship is like.
Yeah, but that also doesn't happen 100% of the time. So
no, but you have nothing to lose.
Well, no. Well, wait a second. You do have things to lose. That's not a correct statement. There's all kinds of things that you have to lose. You could get a chick pregnant, for instance. That's contraception. That's
or
problematic. You could get an STD. That's problematic.
You can get tested beforehand.
You can also lower her. Hang on. You can also
hold on, Alex. Let out Andrew.
According to the trends currently, if a woman has more than X amount of sexual partners, and I can forward you the study if you'd like, this becomes an indicator for the chances of divorce later on after marriage. So the more they're having sex pre-marriage, the more likely it is that they're going to get a divorce anyway.
And Alex, you even
there are problems with this. It's difficult for you to just make the argument that no, we need to check sexual compatibility by having sex before marriage. I don't think you've demonstrated that yet.
You also agree with this too, Alex. I'm sorry, I will be quick and you can respond. Is that you agree, if we look at it through your lens of like sexual market value, like we've agreed in prior debates that women who have more sexual partners, they are lower on the sexual market value level. They just are. Whatever the reason may be, most men agree.
I never agreed to that.
We didn't agree prior that the more sexual partners a woman has had in the past, the less attracted us and the general man is going to be attracted to them.
I think some men would care. Yeah, I think also other men.
Most men view women having like higher amounts of sexual partners in the past are less attractive.
You'd have to like present evidence for that.
Okay, here's some evidence for that. Here's a common saying: "Don't turn a blank into a housewife." Can you fill in that blank for us, Alex? What's the blank, Alex? Don't turn a blank into a housewife.
Yeah, a common saying is not evidence. Like you have to present some kind of.
Well, I don't know. It's pretty, but it's common, right? It's so common that you can fill in the blank. Can you fill in the blank?
Well, hold on. Couldn't she just lie about it, like you said?
Yeah, I think
but women do lie. They
it shouldn't affect their sexual market value because they just lie about it.
Their body count often. We know that's
true. Yeah, but then they could just lie about it, so that defeats your whole argument. If they're going to lie about everything else, they could just lie about this.
They could, but there's other ways to make these determinations.
Wait, what? I want to hear. I'm so curious. I got to hear. What is the other way?
For instance, a reputation follows a person. You would agree that that's true.
Let's say you meet a person, they don't have a reputation. You don't know.
No, I mean, that's true. You don't know. But you generally have their family, you have their friends, you have their community that you're dealing with, especially if you're going to be marrying this person. I think that you can determine whether or not they have a reputation for these things fairly easily.
I don't know about that.
Hoping for a reputation that is public and known. Okay,
yeah, I think like nowadays the way
why would it need to be public? All you would need to do is talk to their social circle, their families, their friends, things like this. Women are social animals.
You're gonna like grill her friends on how many sexual partners she has. I think her friends are gonna be loyal to her.
They could all lie. They could all be lying to you, BPF. You hear
that's
that?
true.
Like, we don't need to play the games. Like seriously, like just like for the sake of argument, just for the sake of argument. For the sake of argument, it's like if a dude meets a girl and let's say he doesn't know her, and then he finds out, a few months down the line that she truthfully has had 50 sexual partners in the past. The guy's gonna be a little bit turned off by that. He's gonna be like, "Whoa, I didn't know that. Holy shit!" Or like, let's say he finds out on the first date. Who cares? He's gonna be like, "Whoa." Assuming she's not lying, assuming that is truly the case, most men are gonna be turned away by that. They're gonna be turned off by that. Not all, but most. They're gonna be like, "Whoa, that's just somewhat of a red flag for most men." So,
I think some men will, but I don't know if it's most men. I think it's really, really easy for any girl in the sexual marketplace to have a guy lined out the door of guys who are down to date her, marry her. So I don't think it's going to matter for the girl's dating success. Like a chick who is like even semi-attractive, even if she has a 300 body count, she can still very easily lock a guy down. That's just the reality of the dating marketplace.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are some guys that will care. I don't know if it's most guys though. I don't know, honestly. You'd have to like show that to me. But going back to what I was saying,
so that doesn't faze you, Alex, at all? Like if a chick's like, "Yeah, I fucked 100 guys last night in one night," would that bother you at all?
I mean, I don't understand how my sexual preference play into this, but I'll answer the question. I've talked about this publicly. For me, it's more about like is the number reasonable or not. So if the girl's like 18 and her number is like 30, that's probably a lot. But if she's like 30 and her number is 30, then that's probably more or less decent.
So if a chick did tell you that she just like had a train run on her the night before, that wouldn't give you. But she showered, right, Alex? So it's good. It's okay. It's fine. You're cool with it because she took a nice shower.
Are we talking about for
dating? Are we talking
about for dating or for sex?
Even for sex. Yeah.
Either one, dude.
Either one's fine.
Well, these are two different things, guys. Oh my god. Yeah. What the fuck?
If I'm
are they? We were. I'm stunned. They're two different things. We didn't know that.
Well, you're asking, like, would this be a disqualifier for dating or for sex? The qualifications for what is dating and what is sex are going to be way different, especially for men. Like,
yeah, okay, but either way,
you literally just gave us the quote earlier: "Don't turn a hoe into a housewife" or whatever. That's by definition right there. There's a different qualification for dating and for sex.
Well, right. My overarching point here to ask Alex is that he says that he thinks that most men don't have an aversion to a woman having a lot of sexual partners, and yeah, you said you don't think it's true for most men.
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know.
I know my ears didn't.
But do you? Do you, Alex? Do you have an aversion to that?
Do I have an aversion? Depends on what we're talking about. For dating, for sex, what the number is, how well I know the girl. There's a lot of factors.
Okay.
But anyway, going back to what I want to ask. Okay, just indulge me in this hypothetical. Zen and Andrew, have any of you guys ever had really bad sex?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrew?
No, I don't think I've ever had really bad sex. No.
Okay. Well, I guess you're a stud. All right, Zen, for you.
I mean, I'm trying to be honest. I can't.
It's either like the most bad faith answer in the world, or it's like the saddest answer in the world. And I'm trying to figure out which one
I don't think that I can recall a time where I had bad sex.
Every guy must have had bad sex. But okay, Zen, can you imagine marrying that girl that you had bad sex with and that being your sex life for the rest of your life?
Well, I don't. Well, this is the thing. Like, just because you've had bad sex with a girl like one time, and I'm not claiming like to be the sinless, perfect model citizen who's never had a one night stand, but I would imagine that in those scenarios where they've been bad sex because it's like, I don't know, you're drunk or you're just like you don't know each other very well or what you guys like. That doesn't mean you can't fix it in the future. Like if you do begin dating or I would prefer get married and then figure out your sex life. Like I said, eventually if you guys are communicative, you guys communicate with each other, you can figure out how to improve your sex life so that it's pleasurable for both of you. Because I don't think standalone sex is just like with two people can just be inherently bad and it'll never be pleasurable. I think two people can figure it out.
Do you think with that girl, just try to think back to that time with that girl you had bad sex with?
I don't even know any specific. I'm sure it's happened. I don't know anything specifically, but I'm sure I've had bad sex before. So whatever. It doesn't need to be specific.
Okay. What if you and the girl are into two totally different things? What if she likes to be choked, slapped, fucking called a dirty little slut, and you're super vanilla, and all you want to do is just have regular vanilla sex with the lights off? How are you going to fix that?
Well, I would imagine like somebody coming from my worldview, we wouldn't really be into a girl who has those kind of preferences, because a girl who's into that kind of thing probably isn't a Christian.
He doesn't know about the Catholic Christian girl, man. I went to an all boys high school and had a lot of all girls high schools next to me, my dude.
Yeah, we're not big hats. We don't defend the fact that there's tons of Catholic degenerates.
Okay.
Yeah.
True.
Okay. But so wouldn't it make sense, logical sense, that if you want to avoid a girl who's into like super kinky shit, that you have sex with her so you find out? Like, doesn't that just make logical sense that you kind of test the waters before you commit? Because, like you said, you don't want to be married to that girl.
Why couldn't you just if you guys are both abstinent, you could just talk about it, and then
she might not even know what she likes until she has sex.
Exactly. So you would have to figure it out once you're married. But that's why we don't view that you commit to marriage just to have sex with somebody.
No,
but we do view that you that marriage is better for society, and that sex is kind of like a complement to that, and also it's necessary for reproduction. But that's another topic.
Okay, so Zen, you acknowledge that sometimes you don't really know what you like until you try having sex, right?
I think everybody has a general idea of what they're into when it comes to sex.
Well, then
just at least a general idea. What's that?
Well, then going back to what I was saying earlier, then why wouldn't you just if she has a general idea and you guys are into two different things, then wouldn't you want to find that out?
But you could just ask her. Or she could ask you, are you into like choking and chains and stuff? And you could be like, no, I'm not into that. I guess we're not compatible. We don't need to actually have sex to find out. We could just say, no, I'm not into that kind of stuff. Okay, we don't need to have sex.
But since we've established that people can lie, don't you think you have a high probability of finding out if you tested rather than just go off what she says?
I mean, yeah, but again, I think to be good faith, and I think most people do this in the real world, is that they take people at their word. They don't just assume that everybody's lying to them all the time. So at some point, I think just asking is a feasible solution to that problem.
But you agree that the odds, or at least, are higher if you test it rather than just going off what she says.
Well, it's not only higher, but you would know for sure. But again, okay. I don't think just having sex with somebody to determine sexual compatibility is what we're not arguing that that's a good thing. We don't care. We don't care for sexual compatibility. What we care for is a strong family unit.
Okay, okay. I want to make sure I understand your position. So you're saying that yes, if you have sex with a girl, you will know for sure if you guys are sexually compatible. However,
not necessarily, because like I said, you could have bad sex with a girl on the first time, or you can have good sex with a girl on the first time, and then every time after that could be completely opposite of the first encounter.
You just said you will know for sure.
So maybe I'll just retract that. Maybe you wouldn't know for sure, because there could be. Yeah, I will retract that actually, because you could have really good sex with a girl the very first time, and then every single time after that it could be awful, and vice versa. So,
okay,
you don't actually.
Okay, let me phrase the question like this: do you think, generally speaking, the probability is higher if you tested with a girl and have sex with her rather than just going off what she says?
No, I think that the probability would probably be higher that two virgins who ended up getting married would most likely have a much more fulfilling sex life.
You're not answering the question. That's not the question. I'd like to get an answer to the question. So do you agree that, generally speaking, the probability would be higher if you test the waters and you have sex with her?
Higher for what? Higher for what?
Find out if you're sexually compatible.
I don't know. Because again, like, you mean just have sex one time or have sex 100 times?
Either or. You just have sex with her. Like, every time you have sex with her, that's a little bit more evidence. But let's just assume you have sex 10 times. Do you think you're going to get a better idea of whether you're sexually compatible just going off what she says or having sex with her 10 times?
Yeah, obviously, when you actually are doing it, you're going to learn what is more or less compatible with each other. But again, that's not the metric that we're going by. And like BPF said, and I think you can even reason this just as a human being, logically speaking, two people that don't have any other standard to compare to, they aren't going to be saying, oh my God, this sex is awful, this sex is horrible. They're going to say, this is the only sex I've ever had. We're going to just have to make it work because we're married. And
same could be said for abusive relationships, by the way.
I think pretty much everybody would be able to do that. But
so you're saying, yes, you will be more likely to find out, but I don't think sexual compatibility is important. Okay, but you do think that people staying married is important, right?
Yeah.
You don't think sexual compatibility plays any kind of role in the likelihood a marriage stays together?
You didn't say that.
I didn't say it plays no role. I just think
Okay.
I would
So
again I would argue there's got to be a strong argument here. Pull up the studies. I don't really fucking care, but a lot of people would agree that when people are having bad sex, it's not just because they're not sexually compatible. It's because there's other things going on causing it. Whether they're being neglectful, they're resentful of their partner, whatever.
Yeah. There's sometimes other factors, but let's just follow the logical
I would
train.
say pretty much all the time there's other factors.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead.
Let's just follow the logical train here. We want marriages, or you guys want marriages to stay together. You acknowledge that sexual compatibility is at least part of a determining factor in marriages staying together, right? Mm-hmm. And the only way, and you're more likely to find out that you're sexually compatible by having sex before marriage.
Yeah, that's the part we reject.
Yeah, that one there. I think to word it properly. Well, to word it properly, I think it's that people who abstain until marriage, since they're not going to have a prior reference point, they're not going to be even thinking in the same paradigm that you are of like, oh my God, this sex sucks. This sex is bad. They're going to say, this is my only sexual partner that I've ever had, and I'm married to them, so we're going to make it work. And I think that they will become sexually compatible. Anybody that has sex with the same partner over a long period of time is eventually going to learn how to be compatible with them one way or another. Like you said earlier, like imagine a dude that's really into blowjobs and a girl will never do it. Well, if he wants to be with her and he's married to her, he's going to have to fucking deal with that.
Yeah, but they're not actually increasing their sexual compatibility. They're just settling for a worse relationship. The same could be said of abusive. They are
increasing sexual compatibility because they're making a compromise. He's becoming more compatible with her, and I'm sure there's other areas where
there is no compromise. He's just not getting something. He's just losing something.
Well, that is a compromise.
That's what a compromise is.
I mean, sometimes you are just going to lose something with no gain in a marriage as part of a compromise.
Compromise usually implies both sides are making some arrangement, but okay.
Gentlemen, before you respond, just a brief intermission because we're at that 30-minute mark. Guys, DGG has 6,000 watching. Alex has 200 watching. We on our chat have at least 200-something watching also right now. But none of our numbers are reflecting anything on that like button. So if you could please, since we're talking about smashing tonight, smash the like button at least. Smash the like button. Remember to subscribe. Andrew, you were the last one to talk, so please go.
Yeah, where were we at? We were talking about, compromise in marriage. Yeah, no, I mean, the compromise is that if you want to have a healthy marriage, there's going to be some things that your wife's not going to want to do or that you're not going to want to do that you have to compromise on. That is a compromise. You're just saying, well, no, you're not. You're just not getting what it is that you want. It's like, no, I think that there's more to it than that. And I think that is how we compromise in marriage, for sure.
Which marriage do you think is more likely to work out?
Why does that sound miserable?
The idea of just like, oh, I'm just losing this thing forever and I don't get anything for it. Like that's pretty miserable.
What do you mean you don't get anything for it?
As in, you could have just found somebody that was more sexually compatible with you, and you wouldn't have to be just giving stuff up for free.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what if you value really tasty food over that other thing, right? And then the other person, the other chick that you would have gone with, she'll give you the blowjob, but she won't make the tasty food. I mean, there's all kinds of other factors that are involved there that are important when you're compromising.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I would want that to be on the table before you're making the decision.
And you can do that before you're.
You don't know how good somebody is at giving a blowjob or how good somebody feels when you're having sex without doing it first. You just can't know that.
But the thing is that you can't know that even after it's been done the one time.
You know more. You don't. First of all, you don't have to have sex with them just one time, but you will know that by having sexual experience with a person. Like, yeah, you can argue that they might.
Just knowledge that you're more likely to know for sure by doing it. So you can't just go back and say you won't know either way.
Even if we grant this to you and just say, okay, maybe we just say, okay, maybe you're more likely to know for sure that there's some type of sexual compatibility. We still don't think that would be a deal breaker in a marriage on either side, and that there's a lot more at play here inside of a marriage than just this thing. So for the purposes of moving the conversation along, because we're just stuck on this point, we'll just say, okay, it's possible that you could know more about your sexual compatibility by having sex with somebody before you get married to them. Sure. We'll just go with that. I still don't think it affects our argument at all.
Okay. I mean, it's a pretty common sense point, but okay, I'm glad you granted that. Okay, so given that, okay, two scenarios. One, we have a married couple and the husband likes to have sex once a week, and the wife likes to have sex 7 times a day, and they're into totally different shit. The wife likes to be,
You mean like every marriage ever?
I
Right, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the fact that you're
It's
saying
like,
that already kind of shows that like you'd need to
Yeah,
shop
no,
around more for
it's-
sexual
the joke is that
compatibility
men
before.
have- It's just the joke
Come
is
on,
that men have a higher
crack a
sex
smile,
drive.
Destiny. It was funny.
Well, it's not. I mean, like, it's funny. It's only funny to you though because it only makes sense to you because you have no sexual
No, it's just
experience.
because men
Like,
have
it
a
makes
higher
sense
that's
to
not
you,
necessarily
right?
true.
It's
Tons
an
of women
old
have
trope.
tons
Come
of
on.
women have huge sex drives, but you have no
Yeah,
idea. You don't even
it
know.
was
You have
a
no
joke.
idea.
It was a joke.
It's a
because
self-report.
Okay,
most-
we can move on from the joke. We can move
Yeah,
on.
no, I'm
I
just
need
saying
to
it's funny.
explain the
Just
joke to
Guys,
make
guys,
it less
hold
funny.
on.
I gotta explain the joke to make it less funny.
Get in there, Kevin. Get in there.
Okay,
Most-
okay.
You
All
gotta
right,
shut it
Zen,
down,
go ahead and
Kevin.
explain the
Men have a
joke.
higher
Go
sex
ahead and
drive.
explain
We
it.
all
Kevin, you
understand the joke. It's just funny
Yeah,
because
we
it
get the
reveals
joke,
like an
though.
underlying like fundamental
Was
misunderstanding
it
of
a
the world.
dog? Was it a dog whistle, Destiny? Are you
Yeah.
calling out the dog whistle?
Yeah.
Is
I'm
that?
just
All right, let's
projecting. I'm
move
just
on from the
projecting.
joke.
Hey, but seriously, guys, let Destiny go. Destiny, finish.
No, I
your
said my thing.
statement.
I
Go
was just
for it.
commenting on the thing. Go ahead. I'm done.
Okay, so what I was saying is you have a situation. One is, again, the wife who likes to have sex like fucking 7 times a day, and the husband likes to have sex once a week. And the other marriage is they both like to have sex once a day. Now, if you had to bet money, which one of those would you bet money on that is more likely to work out?
I don't have enough information.
So you think that,
I literally wouldn't be able to tell you. Literally would not be able to tell you.
You have.
So
It's
you
just
think
a
that
probabilistic thing for one or the other. You don't have to say it's going to absolutely. It's just like probability. What's more likely?
yeah, just probability. Yeah.
Don't know what I don't know.
Literally don't know.
Oh, man,
Literally do
dude.
not know.
Well,
7 times a day, or 7 times a week, or did you say 7 times a day?
Look, it doesn't matter. The point is
Once a
if-
day
if-
versus once a week.
Oh my god. Don't you think that kind of level of sexual compatibility could potentially jeopardize
You're
their
not. You
marriage?
know, you're not making an argument right now. You know that. Like you guys,
I'm
I don't
trying to
know
make
why.
one.
Like the smug laughing and like I don't like you're not making an argument that we actually have to concede to or contend with. Like we don't know what you're talking about. You're
Yeah,
not
no,
providing enough information.
okay. What
to us.
what would we
Yep.
need? I'm just curious. What would we need to change your mind on this?
What? So you guys base everything off of empirical data and studies, right?
So, some things I do, but some things I don't. Like if somebody
Okay,
would have asked
yeah.
me, like, is an air conditioner going to make your life better if you live in Austin, Texas? I don't know if I could give you a study on that. I don't even know what kind of research I would look for. But I would assume, yeah, the answer is obviously yes. But so when you ask me, like, would better sex make for a better relationship? The answer is obviously yes. But if you're challenging me on that, but I can try to find
He didn't say better sex. He just said more. He said sex once a week versus
when
sex
he
once
says,
a day.
hold on, when he's
talking about
saying
sexual
more
compatibility.
sex, he's saying a greater sexual
Okay.
compatibility. Having sex once a day implies higher sexual compatibility than once a week. It generally implies that. But yeah, but like I'm curious, what kind of data would you need to see? If I could show you, for instance, because I
Well,
can.
we're looking for societal-wide prescriptions here. So what
If
we're
I-
saying, what
So
our position
if I
is,
can show you data that shows that like 20% of marriages end because of sexual incompatibility or intimacy, physical intimacy issues, would something like that go to show, okay, well maybe that like sex before marriage could be a positive there in ending those divorces? Would that be
we
okay?
agree, but we agree that sex is a valid part of marriage and is a necessary part of marriage.
No, we're not talking. No one here is talking about
yeah.
sex. No one here is talking about sex. We're talking about sexual compatibility.
Okay, so then you're going to show us empiricism about sexual compatibility or cold bed?
What
and
I
then are you just going to say that cold bed is a lack of sexual compatibility?
by definition, generally, yes. If there's an unhappiness with the amount of sex happening on one side, that's a sexual incompatibility.
What if they have mind-blowing sex? They're totally compatible, and they have mind-blowing sex, but one of them just decides to punish the other one by no longer having sex with them.
You're not engaging in the hypothetical.
Well,
part,
no, I
right?
mean, I would. To
What do you,
be
I mean,
clear,
that's
it's like,
exactly what I'm engaging in.
what if it's like when you have sex once a week and it's like mind-blowingly good, like top tier, but if you have sex once a day, it kind of gets a little bit stale after a while. What if that's the case?
It's
That's why we're
possible
saying it's
that
not
somebody
necessarily a
having
good thing.
it's possible that somebody having less sex could have a more fulfilling sex life than somebody having more sex. We were just using that as a proxy for having better sex because when we say good sex, both of you guys lose your minds. So if you want to call it mind-blowing sex, then sure. A couple that has mind-blowing sex versus a couple that has not mind-blowing sex. Which one is more likely to succeed?
Wait, how did we lose our minds?
Oh my God. Can we not derail?
It's
Let's
just
not
no,
like
no.
Destiny debate.
I mean,
match.
I'd really like to
No,
know.
hang
how
on,
we
hang on.
lost our
No,
minds. Which
Andrew,
one of us
no
do you think
derailing.
spurred
Pick
on
on the
any of
question.
it? I'm confused by where we lost our minds here, Destiny.
Andrew, you're derailing right now. Focus on the hypothetical.
No,
You guys do the shit all the time. Just focus on the hypothetical.
Okay, give us the hypothetical again, Alex.
Destiny, you want to do it or should I do it?
We'll just make sure that we get it down. So we'll engage with this, or we'll end up sticking on this forever and ever. So what's the hypothetical?
Okay, you have 2 relationships, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Ceteris paribus, all else equal, okay?
All else equal.
Yes,
Got it.
okay. All else equal, one couple has mind-blowing sex. The other couple has mediocre to no sex. Which couple is probably more likely to succeed?
Probably the couple that has mind-blowing sex,
Yeah.
if we're doing all things equal.
Okay, so
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
could we say then that if
But all
sexual
things are not equal, just so you know. But for the
if
for the
sexual
hypothetical,
compatibility
we'll
was something that we could test, wouldn't that be a good thing to test before getting into a relationship?
it could be a good thing to test before getting into a relationship if all things were indeed equal. But all things are not indeed equal in the real world, and there's all
Okay.
kinds of consequences that come with it. Now, if you were to if you were to test it with an experiment like a machine and just, like touch a person with the machine and know that they're sexually compatible, sure. But I think that there's a difference between that and having premarital sex with the consequences that come with that as well.
Okay, so
Okay,
wait. Just real quick, I just want to, because we've actually somehow we've gotten somewhere in the argument. Holy shit! So now we've all agreed that being able to test sexual compatibility before relationship is good, but there are drawbacks to it that outweigh the benefits.
That was our position from the beginning.
That's okay. No, it wasn't.
Yes,
But
it was.
Okay,
Wasn't
fine,
it?
it was. We are
Was
just
not.
retards, and now we've caught up to your big brains, okay? So we're caught up now. Thank you for catching us up. So now
You're
we
welcome.
all agree that that's the case. So now the next part of the argument is, let's look at the drawbacks, and let's see if these drawbacks are actually, first we have to see if they exist, then we have to see, are they actually drawbacks?
Okay.
Okay.
We can do that. We'll go ahead and just concede it for the purpose of moving along.
We're not conceding anything. We just caught up to you. No one's conceding anything. We're all good.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So
We're moving this along, and what is it that you want to know? You want to know what the drawbacks are to having premarital sex?
yeah, so let's go through some of the drawbacks of premarital sex. Yeah.
Okay. The first drawback is the more sex that a woman has, the less likely it is that she's going to stay in a successful marriage.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, do we want to
Let
just
me
list?
engage with it.
Do we want to list all of them,
Let's
and then we can
just
go
take them
down
one
the
at a
list?
time. Do you
Okay,
guys
one at a
consider
time.
that a
One at a
drawback?
time. Yeah.
Okay, one at a time. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
You
Let me
consider that a
engage with
drawback?
for a second. Okay, so I'm going to answer that. So let me engage with this. So do you think that I want to first understand your position a little better. Do you think that, for example, if you okay, you have two situations. One is you're going to marry this girl. Like, let's call her Anna. You know you're going to marry Anna. In one scenario, you have sex with her after marriage. In one scenario, you have sex with her before marriage, but then you marry her anyway. And then you guys, do you think that she's more likely to divorce you because you had sex with her before marriage?
Hang on. Restate that one more time. I want to make sure I get it down.
I had trouble following too. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll explain like this. Okay, so you're going to marry this chick Anna, right? In one scenario, you have sex with her after you guys get married. In another scenario, you have sex with her before marriage, but then you wind up marrying her. Do you think one of these is more likely to lead to divorce, or is it the same shit?
I don't think one of them is necessarily more likely to lead to divorce. No. But
But
let me ask you a hypothetical, Alex. Let's take our same girl, Anna. Do you think that Anna would be more successful in finding the partner that Anna wants if she has slept with 100 men or if she slept with 0 men?
Wait, say that again? What?
Do you think that Anna would be more successful in finding the partner that she wants if she had slept with 100 men or if she slept with 0 men?
I don't know.
You don't know. So here's the thing. You can't critique us. When you give us a hypothetical, we say we don't know the answer to it. It's not enough information. So let's use Destiny's take there. All else equal. So all else equal, Alex is saying just engage with only the hypothetical. Everything else is going to stay exactly the same. Do you think in that hypothetical, where all things are equal, that the woman with a 0 body count is going to be more successful in finding the partner that she wants than a woman with 100 body count?
Are we talking about in staying married with that partner and having
in finding her soulmate, getting married, and staying married? Yeah, that's what he means generally.
I think on average, a girl with a lower body count will probably be more likely to stay married. Yeah, I would probably say that. Yeah.
Thanks, Alex. We appreciate that.
So here's a question. I'll answer this. What about a woman that's dated 100 men but never had sex versus a woman that's only dated one man and then gotten married, but there's still no premarital sex?
Yeah, I still think that their odds are more successful.
Didn't ask. What I'm asking is a woman that's been in 100 relationships before finding the one and getting married versus a woman that's only been in one relationship.
Oh, probably the woman who's been in 100 relationships would be able to successfully navigate that better. In fact, that's a thing that's advocated for. We advocate that women should date, just not have sex. Same thing with men. You should be able to date, but not have sex. Don't have sex. Wait until marriage. We're just saying that that's more successful as a strategy society wide.
Sure. Why would we say that?
Outcomes for everybody.
Why would dating around before picking the one help you have a higher success in a relationship?
Well, because it expands your pool necessarily of men that are potential suitors for you.
Why doesn't this exact same argument carry over to the sexual argument? That
Well,
expanding your pool gives you...
it might if your partner hadn't admitted that if you have a higher body count, you're less likely to be successful finding the man that you want. Whereas if you have a low body count and you're just dating multiple men, that's very, very common for women to do. It doesn't reflect negative on their sexual marketplace value at all. You would expect that a woman who's very attractive with a very low body count would have a lot of suitors, in fact.
I mean, it sounds like at this point what you're really advocating for is the woman, in this sense, should really just be lying about her body count. That's the optimal sexual strategy. She should be sleeping...
No, that's not what I'm advocating for.
Well, hold on. That's not what you're advocating. I'm sorry. That's not what you're advocating for. I'm sorry. I know that triggered you. It's not what you're advocating for, but it would be the logical consequence of what you're saying is that what a woman should do is she should sit around, but she should just lie about her body count.
Or she could just have a lower body count, or ideally no.
Or she could just not sleep around and not lie about it.
Yeah, but having the lower body count, though, since we already agreed that having premarital sex is a better indicator of postmarital sex, that sleeping with somebody beforehand is going to help you figure out if they're more compatible with you. Just like dating them before marrying them is going to help figure out if they're more compatible with you. So the woman should be dating and sleeping around. She just shouldn't tell the person her current body.
Well, there's no argument for why learning.
You smuggled a bunch of bullshit in there that I didn't say.
Can you tell me one thing that you believe I smuggled?
So the first thing is, as you said, you're going to find out that you're more compatible. And I'm guessing you mean sexually compatible?
Yeah, we already granted this.
With other men by dating them?
No, by dating and having sex with them. You'll find out who you're more sexually compatible with.
Okay. I just want to make sure I had that down correctly. So the problem, do you have any issues with me saying that women who have a lot of suitors and not having sex with them, that's in no way problematic in your worldview? You don't think that... that there's an issue there, as Alex granted, that if a woman has a lower body count, she's more likely to be successful in finding the partner that she wants, right?
Well, is it having a lower body count, or is it having her partner know her body count if it's high? Because those are technically two different things.
Well, it is technically two different things, but the implication would be that the partner knows. If you don't know, you don't know. But the thing is that would that maybe grant incentive to lie? I guess it could. But we're not going to just assume that women are going to lie.
Well, we're not just assuming. We're just looking at the incentives. If we agree that premarital sex can be an indicator to postmarital sex, and if the guy only cares about the body count he hears about, and also, not to appeal to anecdote, but we all know that women lie about their body counts. So, it seems like that's the natural extension.
Why do they do that? Wait,
so do men. But so do men. Destiny's right about that. Men lie the other direction, right?
Yeah,
men lie it up.
Sure, but I'm saying that it feels like we have the ideal world for women being incentivized to sleep around, but then lie about it because she's trying to get an indication of how the postmarital sex is going to be.
Well, nothing.
Why do they lie? Wait. Why do they lie and say that their body count is lower, Destiny? Why do they do that?
Because men tend to prefer people with lower body counts.
Right. So wouldn't that follow that if a woman actually does have a lower body count, she is objectively more marketable to the man in terms of attractiveness? Obviously, she can lie, but assuming everybody's being truthful, the woman who has the lower body count is more marketable to the man.
I'm not going to assume. I would never assume everybody's being truthful here because the incentives. We have to follow the incentives.
No, we could just say what if everybody's lying about everything now, and now there's no argument to be had because what if we're all lying? Everybody's lying about it.
You have incentive to lie right now.
But we literally all just said that the incentives here are not only to lie, but that people do lie. Men exaggerate up and women exaggerate down.
What if we were lying about that?
Yeah, what's your incentive right now not to lie to us while we're in a live debate? Shouldn't you? Isn't your incentive to not be good faith at all?
Well, I never lie, actually,
What
because
if
I
you
have
lie?
divine revelation from God, and He tells me the truth, and I deliver
What
it.
if
So
he's
I
lying?
cannot tell a lie. God can't lie to me. It's
Look
impossible.
at that. Destiny went to precept.
I've got
Destiny
divine
went to
revelation.
precept.
I'm
You
actually
all
being
heard
told
it.
right now
Destiny
by
went to
God, so I
precept,
cannot
and
be
he had
lying.
to fall back to precept
Yep.
in a debate.
If you're going to
You
tell
all
me
heard
that
it.
I'm lying, tell me your ultimate truth. What is the ultimate objective reality that you rest
Destiny
on?
going to meta ethics. Why are you derailing to meta ethics, Destiny? Why are you doing that?
Okay, I think he's trying to be funny, but
Well, no. So I guess we're
let
having
me-
with perfect information. I guess now it's the right.
Please give him the
We
gospel.
definitely don't want to go down.
Please give him the
that
gospel.
Yeah,
No, we want to go down
let me
this
do it.
road. We want this road.
I'm mainly here to
Okay.
make sure that we do not go down
Yeah.
that route.
Kevin's right. I'm
Okay,
joking.
let me go
No,
back
I'm
to
not
my
joking.
analogy because I was just about to make
Okay,
a
go ahead,
point.
Alex.
So yeah, in the Anna example, you said if she has sex with you before marriage, it doesn't actually affect your divorce risk, but it does affect your ability to find out if you're sexually compatible. So then, how's having sex with Anna, a premarital sex with Anna, negative? If you just said that it doesn't affect her likelihood of divorcing you.
Sorry,
I'm sorry. It's really hard to follow these. Like the way you word them is like hard to follow. Can you try again?
Okay. You said in the Anna example that I gave earlier, I gave you two scenarios. I said one is that you have sex with her before you get married. The one is you have sex with her after marriage. And you said, and I asked you, is one of those more likely to lead to divorce? And you said no, right? Correct?
I would actually say that empirically speaking, since women with
remember this was stated under an all else being equal, meaning there was no other contributing factors whatsoever, just this, no external factors, nothing. That's said so that you engage specifically with the terms of the hypothetical, but just understand what that is. There's an implication here that things are all equal, but they're not going to be in real time all equal.
We're trying to figure out the difference between correlation and causation. So I'm trying to figure out if you having sex with Anna before you marry her is more likely to lead her to
because from your guys' perspective, all causation is just correlation. It's just X amount of correlation. You can believe it because you believe that there's with some degree of certainty.
Absolutely not.
So you believe in objective truth then?
Okay, hang on. Derailing again, once again.
Andrew. No, I'm not. That's not a derail. If you're saying that correlation and causation are not the same, that it's not just correlation that creates
you don't want to
causation.
engage in a hypothetical. You're derailing because you don't want to engage in a hypothetical.
Okay, here I'll answer your hypothetical. Here I'll answer it. I think I understand it. It's that all, like Andrew said, all else being equal, there may not be anything identifiably like bad about the sex before marriage or remaining abstinent. But if we, since in reality things, it's not all else equal, we can look at the empirics and there is a close correlation between women that remain abstinent not getting divorced and women who don't remain abstinent and getting divorced. Like there's a higher chance of divorce if you don't remain abstinent and vice versa. So that's probably the best way to engage with your hypothetical.
Right, but we can't confuse the macro with the micro. There's macro trends that don't apply to the micro. So I'm trying to figure out if you think that just by having sex with a girl before marriage, you are doing something that actually causes her to be a higher divorce risk.
Yes.
It sounds like the answer is no.
No, the answer is yes.
Oh, so now the answer is different. Okay.
No, the answer has never been different. No. We already established this because when I turn the hypothetical back around, you say that women with a lower body count are more likely to be successful in a relationship because men prefer them. If we know that that's true, then that means just the act of you having sex with them is going to be bad for her.
Even if you plan on marrying her, so you have sex with her.
Well, that's now you're adding qualifiers to it, but
no, that was literally the hypothetical all along, dude. That was the hypothetical all along. You plan on marrying her. One scenario, you have sex with her 3 months before marriage. One scenario, you have sex with her, 1 week after marriage. Is there anything about you having sex with her before marriage that's going to cause her to be more likely to divorce you?
In that specific situation where it's like 1 week to one after, probably not.
Wait, hold on. Okay. Shouldn't you always have sex before marriage then? Because let's say that you've met a woman, and let's say you're going to marry her. In one sense, you could have sex before marriage, and then in the other sense, you could have sex after marriage. Let's say that in the first sense, you have sex before marriage, and then you get married. In both senses, hasn't the woman only had one partner?
Yeah, that would be true in that particular case. That in that sense, they've only had one partner. But
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So,
go
I
ahead.
was
No,
gonna-
you need to
I was-
bail
I
him out.
was
He
gonna
had nothing
quickly
else to say on that.
I was
Well,
going to
no, I
quickly
was
say
finishing,
that
but-
I was going to quickly say that the sources that I've looked at have specifically said like divorce rates when a woman has had one sexual or no zero premarital sex partners versus one versus two versus whatever.
Well, but is
Like,
the one premarital sex
it's-
partner the one person they get married to?
Yeah, so like if a woman had sex with the only one person and then went on to marry them, that would still be considered a premarital sex partner. But having zero premarital sex partners, again, in everything that I've looked at, I can send them to you if you want, have
I've
shown
seen
that
it.
zero premarital sex partners are less likely to end in divorce.
But if you're serious about marrying the girl, right, her body count is going to be one either way. Shouldn't you have sex with her before marriage so you can at least find out if you're sexually compatible? If it doesn't.
Well, what if you're not
actually-
sexually compatible? Then do you not marry her?
Yeah, but at least you found out before you had to get divorced.
Yeah,
I don't-
but that's not great for. But that's not very
compatibility
good for her, is it?
Well,
That's
you
not
better make
great
sure
for
you're
her.
serious about the person you're dating then.
Well, this whole sexual compatibility thing is like I think it's beginning to throw me for a loop, and a lot of people that might be watching.
I don't know how.
It's like it's not like there's those little toddler toys where you got the square hole and the circle block and it doesn't fit in the circle block. We all know that like generally dicks and vaginas all are generally the same shape and they're gonna fit in one way or another. And you can fucking make it work. That's what I'm saying. Like even if it's not good the first time, you're not compatible, whatever that means. Like both of you didn't enjoy it to the maximum, your maximum pleasure receptors allowed. You can find a way to improve your pleasure because the dick still fits in the vagina, for lack of a better way of wording that. Like you can find a way to make it work.
Sometimes the dick literally does not fit in the vagina, but okay, generally speaking, yes, it fits. But if you have a couple that's extremely sexually incompatible, that is way more likely to lead to issues and divorce. Like if you have a wife who likes to get fucked 7 times a day and be choked out, and you have a husband who's super vanilla and has a low sex drive, that relationship, that marriage is destined for disaster. Yeah, if there's a little bit of a difference, you can find
These
a
are
middle
all
ground.
outliers, though, dude. Come on, this is not how it operates in real time. And I mean, are you disputing that? Do you think that in real time, what we're dealing with on average is a bunch of really horny women and their husbands are at home and just they just refuse to fuck their wife? I mean, what do you think is going on here, Alex?
Dude, I literally had
that's not what's happening,
dude,
man.
No, that actually happens all the time. I had it's kind of anecdotal, but like 4 or 5 years ago, I had a situation where I hooked up with this married chick, and she was telling me about her husband. I was like, this guy sounds pretty cool. What's the issue? And he's like, yeah, we're just totally sexually incompatible. He's into like fucking like peeing and shit. He doesn't actually fuck me. He just wants to piss on me, and I'm not into that. And I need to get fucked. So that is a direct example, even though it's anecdotal, of like a marriage that is leading to divorce because they're totally sexually incompatible. And they found that out beforehand.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Alex. I don't think that most marriages are ending because men are just wanting to pee on their spouse and their spouse just wants to have regular old sexy sex, right? So just like, no, Alex, I reject it. I think it's foolish. I think it's silly. No. No.
So you think it's silly that marriages end in divorce because of sexual incompatibility? Even though I think it's the number 3 reason.
No, I didn't say that, Alex. I didn't say that marriages can't end in divorce because sex stops happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're like again. This is what I've been saying the whole time. I don't know if you're actually able to justify this argument based on any empirics, dude. Like, I don't and just for like your hypothetical earlier, it's like, well, what's better, sex once a day or sex once a week? Like, what if it's the case that the sex once a week, and this would not be all else equal, is because the man is working 6 days a week and he only has one day available where he can have sex, but they have a really good relationship, otherwise because he's able to provide. But then the 7 times a week example is because the husband's unemployed and he's available every day.
That wasn't the hypothetical. I never said what is better. I was just asking if you have this massive sexual incompatibility because one person likes to have have sex 7 times a day and one person likes to have sex once a week, then there is going to be a big issue in how that relationship is less likely to work out than one where people are sexually compatible. That was the point. I wasn't trying to make a point about how one is better, one is worse, but you acknowledge that sexual incompatibility, people being not sexually compatible leads to divorce and leads to marriages ending. So I don't know why you're like trying to like
I don't know. I
trivialize.
don't think I conceded that. I think I actually argued the other way, that sexual compatibility
Yeah,
is often due to other issues in the relationship, like resent, like jealousy, like whatever. Maybe like what if they have so.
You just acknowledged this like 2 minutes ago. Like I don't know how many
No,
times
I
you
don't
guys
think
have
I
been
ever conceded that.
Okay, so you think sexual compatibility makes zero difference?
I think
in
it's
how
such a
successful-
broad, dude. I think it's such a broad and subjective term that we can't actually pinpoint how this would transition to like morals or like what is good, what is ideal, like sexual
We're not talking about
compatibility. Like, I mean, how do we actually make an argument based off sexual compatibility when everybody's got a different definition of what that means?
True.
Like, dude, I don't know if you're being perfectly purposely obtuse or you're just like being serious right now. I don't know, but like,
dude, I'm not.
how do
No,
you-
I'm telling you, like sexual compatibility to one person would be totally different to another person. Like, who knows what
That's
that
the whole
actually
point
means.
of having sex before marriage. Sorry.
the whole point.
One-
It doesn't.
one-
Yeah,
one
you can
second,
be
Alex.
into different shit.
Just 1 second. We've reached another 30-minute intermission where I have to say you can reach a moment where you can be compatible with all of our channels here and just hit that like button just one time for me. I don't want you to get a high count. You don't have to do it multiple times, just one time. Gentlemen, I want to ask right now, does everybody have an iron bladder here, or do you want to take a bathroom break? Or...
Sign me up. I'll be back.
Okay, cool. All right. Andrew, do you want to take that as a chance to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
So back to where we're at with the sexual compatibility thing. Do you guys think that that's the key factor of a marriage?
I think it's a deal breaker. It won't be the thing that makes a marriage, but it can absolutely be the thing that breaks a marriage.
I didn't say it couldn't break it, but do you think that that's the only contributing factor? Or do you think that there's hundreds of contributing
There's
factors?
tons of contributing factors.
Yeah, the big one's money, right?
Well, but hold on. It's important to know your deal breakers. Like, there are things that you can be compatible on that are good, but they don't make the relationship. But if you're incompatible on them, then they're bad and they break it. So, for instance, having children. Two people that say that they're both willing to have children doesn't mean that the relationship is any better. But one person saying they want to have children and the other saying they absolutely don't is a deal breaker. It would ruin the relationship. Bad sex, I would consider to be in that same category. Just because you're having good sex doesn't make the relationship. But if you're having bad sex, that can be a deal breaker for a relationship. It can destroy a relationship.
And usually when you're talking bad sex, you usually just mean no sex, right?
No,
because
bad sex could be a mismatch.
But that's what's being reported when we have cold bed is no sex, not bad sex.
No sex can result from a variety of reasons. The woman might have problems with her vagina that makes it hard for the guy to fuck her. The guy might have problems getting an erection that makes it hard for the guy to fuck her. They might prefer different amounts or lengths of sex,
Yeah, sure.
of time.
But what would you think the most common reason would be?
The most common reason could be a wide variety of reasons. It could be
but
stemming from.
What do you think it would be the primary reason? Don't you think the primary reason is that the woman just decides she doesn't want to have sex anymore?
I don't think that.
Isn't that what they're mostly
I don't
reporting?
generally think that women just decide they don't want to have sex anymore. I think that women, especially in relationships, are generally pretty sexual creatures. They want to have sex, usually a lot of sex. I think that most people are like that. If sex isn't happening, then either one, there could be another problem in the relationship that needs to be addressed, or two, they're not having the type of sex that they want because there's a huge sexual mismatch.
Right. So the problem usually isn't sex. So the problem isn't usually sex. It's some other contributing factor, and that's our point. So the whole time we've been here banding about sexual compatibility and this silliness. We're talking about a broader prescription here that marriage is complex. We know that it's complex, but it still leads to better outcomes for people. We know that women are going to be able to get married more easily if they have a lower body count, and that those relationships in marriage are going to be more successful, and the children are going to be far healthier. They're going to be far better adjusted. They're going to be better educated. Everyone's going to even make more money. This is what the empiricism shows us societal-wide. And so the concern about whether or not, you fuck her the week before marriage to determine whether or not you're sexually compatible or not, it's just kind of silly to us and kind of beside the point.
Don't you think that no sex is good? It usually stems from having bad sex. Like, don't you think of the woman as having really bad sex? At some point, she's going to be like, yeah, I'd rather just not do it.
Okay. But one more time, Alex, right? Since you seem to be just fixated on the sexual aspect here, you recognize that there's far more to marriage than just the sex. And as Destiny was just saying, and I tend to agree with, and Zen agreed with this as well, that the reason that the sex stops is generally due to some other type of contributing factor inside of the marriage. Not because women aren't sexual creatures or men aren't sexual creatures, but there's some other contributing factor that's going on. And that's really what's breaking the marriage up, not the sexual incompatibility, but some other contributing factor. Usually
That's
like
not what
money,
Destiny,
right?
that's
That's
not
a
what
big
Destiny
one.
said. He said there are other factors, but it could very well be sexual incompatibility. I don't want to
It
like speak
could
for
be,
Destiny.
but when we reason this out, we can determine pretty quickly that there could be other factors, but the chances are, if women are sexual creatures and they're in a marriage and they want to have lots of sex, if the sex stops, there's probably something besides sexual incompatibility that's causing that.
Not necessarily.
How does the reason follow? Yeah, walk me through this.
Well, okay, so do you think that the cold bed starts instantly, right at the beginning of the marriage, or do you think you have to be married for a while? If suddenly the mind-blowing sex just stops, don't you think that there's contributing factors to that are external of sex?
The mind-blowing sex might never even start. That's the issue, right? Because
it may not, but if you're saying that women are very sexual creatures and they want to have sex in their marriage, and I agree that they probably likely do, then the cold bed, that's a contributing component inside of some external factor in the marriage. We know what these external factors are because they're widely reported. The primary one being money being a big one. That's one of the largest contributing factors to why these marriages end. Most marriages are initiated, or most divorces are initiated by women. And
but I mean, marriages also end because of sexual intimacy issues, right? I think I was just Googling around. It looked like the fourth common cause was intimacy issues.
Yeah, but what causes those intimacy issues?
Sometimes it can be sexual incompatibility. It could be.
And sometimes maybe that's true, but we're looking at the primal causes.
But you don't know what the primal cause of sexual incompatibility is. You're just assuming it away.
How am I assuming it away?
Before you guys respond, just for DGG, this is Destiny's chat. You guys, I've been marking down from our chats and Playing with Fire as the super chats, and they will be fielded, but I have 0 super chats from you. Wow. So I just want to make the record clear that on Destiny's side, if you super chat to his channel, I will put it up later for these guys to be interacting with. So please, if that was a question beforehand, you can do that now. Resume. Sorry.
Okay. Anyway,
Andrew,
I'm not brushing anything off. I'm saying that generally speaking, you're not married for 5 or 6 years and then the sex just dries up because they're just no longer interested in each other sexually. Andrew, there's a contributing factor. So my question here would be like, how many times do you think you need to have sex to determine sexual compatibility? I'm just curious. Like once, twice, 10,000 times, 20,000? How many times you guys think you need to have sex to determine the sexual compatibility you're talking about?
Well, I think it really depends on the couple, but the more times you do it, the more likely you are to be sure of
Why are you more likely the more times you do it versus the least times you do it?
More data points, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to depend on the couple. For 2 virgins, you might have to have sex fucking 100 times to figure
So
out
what
the level
should the
of
incentive
compatibility.
be
But for
to
2
ever
people
get
that
married?
have
So why should you ever get married if you just want endless data points by having premarital sex to ever make the determination for sexual compatibility? You want the most data, right?
What is
What's
that?
our cutoff point?
Is the only reason you get married is just to have sex?
No, my whole point is it's not.
Okay, well, hold on, wait. You asked the question, what's the
me,
point in ever getting married? There's a certain level of sex you can have with somebody to figure out like an amount of sexual compatibility. If it's 2 like pretty experienced people, you can probably fuck 5 or 10 times and figure out like within that time frame whether or not you're very compatible or not. If it's people with very little experience, it might be more times. It just depends. Probably maybe 5 times or less to know if you're really compatible with somebody that has a lot of experience. It just depends on.
So you only need the 10 data points then? Why not 1,000 data points first? Why would
a graph is probably going to look like it asymptotically approaches some point. We're doing it 1 time is really big, 2 times is pretty big, 3 times is kind of big, and the difference between 999 and 1,000 is not going to be as big. Which is why I gave you a specific. I gave you a specific number. You asked me, and I gave you a specific number. I said 5 to 10 times with experience, but maybe less than 5, and now you're running back to that. So why not get 1,000 data points?
Yeah, but you're not justifying it. You're just like making shit up as you go.
I mean, like, do you want to have? Well, if you want to write fanfics about having sex, if that's what you want, we can turn off the camera so you can take your dick out and start jerking off. If you want me to describe the encounters to you, like I don't know how deep you want to get into the actual conversation. Like what the fuck?
Calm down.
Andrew, this is sort of like asking if you're a business person, why would you ever hire someone when you can just keep interviewing them and get more data points? At a certain point, you feel like you're confident enough that you've interviewed this person enough, you've talked to him enough that you can safely hire him. It might still be the wrong decision, but you're better off hiring someone that you've interviewed a few times than someone that you've never interviewed. It's the same argument.
Okay, so again, though, what you're really saying here is like, look, for you, there's some type of deal breaker that goes on with this, what you guys call sexual compatibility. This is the crux of your argument, even though, as Destiny listed out, it's what, like number 4 on why marriages go south. We have all the other contributing factors for why marriages go south. But even if we're just focusing on the sexual compatibility aspect here, Destiny says 5 or 10 times is enough for you to determine it. So not just 1 time, not just 2 times, not just 4 times, 5 to 10, that's probably enough data points. But you can't justify why that's enough data points. You just kind of like says, I just intuitively think so. And
I mean, it's not okay. If you really want, we can have more conversations about it if you want. Do you want to have a really deep conversation about sex, Andrew? Is that what you want? Because we can do that. So one time with a person is probably not enough to know genuinely how they feel about sex for a variety of reasons. Because oftentimes the first time there's going to be some nervousness when you guys are both getting to know each other. You might be too scared to broach a more extreme fetish or kink, or there might just be like the general nervousness that impacts the performance. So one time is probably not enough. I think Alex maybe would agree that one time, like, people could be nervous or jittery or whatever for whatever reason.
Well, how many times is enough, though?
I'm talking you through it. I'm talking you through it, Andrew. I'm getting there. Okay. Maybe it's a woman that's generally like pretty nervous about hooking up with new guys. So maybe the first time she does it, maybe she needs like a glass of wine or something first, just to kind of like loosen up a little. Maybe by time 2, maybe she decides to drink again. In which case, she's a little bit loose. Maybe you need 3 times before you have completely sober sex where nobody's doing anything. Maybe the first 2 times are done like either in a hotel or a neutral spot, and you guys aren't in either person's home yet, so you don't know what they're like in a more relaxed environment. So maybe it's like 2 or 3 times. Maybe by time 4, maybe you're introducing other things into sex you didn't do the first time. Maybe somebody likes anal. Maybe somebody likes restraint. Maybe somebody likes hair pulling. There's something like that. You probably aren't going to pull out your entire fucking arsenal on night 1 when
all
the people
of those
are the
things
most
they learn
nervous.
from porn, for the record.
All of these
by
what?
the way, this is fucking funny
wait,
as hell because you just make shit up as you go. You're
okay,
like, well, maybe
I
this,
can't.
maybe that, perhaps this, maybe this. This is why too. Our data point, the reason we absolutely must have 5 to 10 times for our data points is because of all the perhapses and maybes.
Andrew, how many conversations do you need? Hold on. How many conversations do you need to have with a woman before you know if you're going to marry her?
I have no idea. I think it fluctuates drastically.
Why can't I just give you that argument for sex then?
You could, but that at least would be a fucking argument, not this.
That's not it. What you just gave me isn't an argument. You said it's drastically.
This arbitrary point of how many times to determine compatibility. Well, it takes 5 to 10 times to determine compatibility.
Because you're pushing me on an exact number
that I just made up.
You're pushing me on an exact number. If you were to push me on a thing where it's like, how long should you date somebody before getting married? I'd probably say, fuck, I don't know. Could be anywhere from I'd say 6 to 18 months. Really depends. 6 months would be at the absolute lower bound of that. 18 months, I think by a year and a half, assuming you're living together, probably you're going to have a good idea if you're compatible for marriage or not. Maybe it's 2 years, right? But I'm not going to be able to define you. Oh, well, how many conversations is that? How many times have you guys gone to the grocery store? How many times have you watched a movie together? I'm not going to be able to give you, bro, relationships are an ultra macro thing with 50 million variables involved, and so is sex.
Thank you. That's our whole point about
marriage. No, it's not,
well.
Because you're pushing me to give you an exact
in a vacuum. And you're like, within this vacuum, if we're talking inside of this vacuum,
no one is saying
you always have sex before marriage. It's just absurd on its face. And so when I ask you specifics,
I tried my hardest.
When I ask you on the specifics for the compatibility, you just go all over the place, right?
Okay.
You start motor mouthing instead of giving us answers.
True. Absolutely true.
All right, so really quickly, we can keep going on the sexual compatibility route, but we've been going on it for a while. Do you guys want to still stay on this? Or
I can take us down a new avenue on the same topic. It's the same, the question of sexual compatibility.
Do you guys want to continue with the sexual compatibility?
Because there's something I want to explore, and I don't exactly know how this is going to go. So don't take me. I'm not trying to.
I want to make one more point before we.
Shaniko, you got to be careful, bro. I saw your $5 in chat.
Okay, so yeah, Andrew, I think you're being a little bad faith right now because that's literally what Destiny was doing the whole time. This is sort of like asking.
Being bad faith?
Yes.
This is sort of like what?
Nothing. I was just messing with you, Alex. Go ahead, man.
No, I said Andrew, not Destiny. That's what Destiny was trying to do the whole time.
No, you said Andrew. Anyway. I think you're being bad faith because that's what Destiny's been doing the whole time. And I was like, yes. So I was joking. It was a joke. I was kidding.
Okay.
Relax.
Yeah, I got you. What I meant was, yeah, you know what I mean. But anyway, so that's like sort of like asking like a potential employee, like, well, how many times are you going to interview a potential job prospect? Well, is it going to be 2 or 3 times, right? It just really depends. So that's like not really an answer, question you get a straight answer to. But I want to follow again this logical trail. I know I've laid it out a few times, but once again, very simple, very straightforward. And your guys' answer keeps kind of changing on this, so I want to lock this in. So you say that sex is an important part of marriage, even if it's number 4, it's still an important part of marriage. You can increase your chance of finding out if you're sexually compatible by having premarital sex. And even if you have premarital sex with the girl you plan on marrying, it doesn't increase your divorce rate. So what is the drawback of having premarital sex? If you plan on marrying,
it does increase
the divorce rate. That's what Zen told you. With empirical evidence, we can determine that if you've had sex before you get married, your chances of divorce, even with the same person, your chance of divorce do increase.
Zen in chat, just curious. I just want to see that real quick.
So you think that just fucking the girl before marriage that increases the likelihood of her divorcing you?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
I think it's likely. Yeah.
Well, not likely.
That
was what your study said.
Well, why do you think that is? Like, what do you think? You're like changing her brain chemistry by fucking her before marriage?
Well, yeah, in a sense, I think you do change a woman's brain chemistry by fucking her before marriage. I think that sex, for women especially, the intimacy that's involved, there's a sacred aspect to it, at least early on in their lives. Now, I think maybe in the year 2022, some of that has been kind of filtered out of society, and I'm sure that the Coomers absolutely love that. But we'd like to get back to a place where women thought it was a little more sacred.
I don't really know what.
Well, what I was gonna say is like regarding like the sexual compatibility thing and like intimacy being a reason for marriage or relationships failing, whatever. Wouldn't you guys agree that people not being satisfied with their sex life is because they are looking outward and seeing other people presenting their sex lives, whether it be through porn or just through mainstream, whatever, Alex's YouTube channel, the red pill pickup artist manosphere type shit, which is just pressing casual sex and promiscuity on the whole population. When people look outward and see all this sex occurring around them and they feel almost constrained in their marriage, and maybe that's why they might feel like their sex life is not satisfactory. But if we had a society where sex wasn't such a prominent, hobby for society to partake in, people wouldn't feel like their sex life is lacking because they wouldn't be. They just wouldn't see it all around them. They would
but the problem is I don't think this is a good argument for keeping it, because we could make the same argument in a ton of other scenarios that have happened that people don't know. Like, for instance, like, what if a woman didn't know that it was normal in a relationship for a man to not like smack her, or for a man to not scream at her? Or what if a man didn't know that you could have a normal relationship where the woman isn't breaking all of his shit, right? Well, we could argue that they're more likely to stay in those relationships to try to keep them working. But, like, is that a good argument for them staying in those relationships? Do we really need to hide information from people so that they feel better in their relationships? Isn't that an argument that we're hiding information that they should have available?
Well, but you're not hiding information. Society is going to make a promotion against those types of things. For instance,
you're saying the same thing in different ways.
Smacking a woman, for instance, society would promote against that. So it's not that you don't know that you can't smack a woman. It's just that we're not putting the rhetoric and the imagery in your head all the time that smacking a woman's okay. This is going to apply to sex as well. There's no doubt. I mean, you guys aren't really going to argue the point with us that since, OnlyFans and the explosion of pornography on the internet and the rewiring that it does to people's brains has not had a significant environmental effect on children that are being raised in the current society and their viewpoints on sex. I mean, of course
viewpoints on sex. I think in some ways our viewpoints on sex are way better than they were before. And then
whether or not that's true, I'm not asking whether or not you think that's a good or bad thing, but just that it is true that those environmental factors have indeed significantly changed.
Yeah, they've changed it, but I would say in a lot of ways for the better, for way better.
But if people kept their sex lives in the bedroom primarily, like if most people kept their sex lives in the bedroom, don't you think couples, like men or whatever, would become less envious of other people's sex lives and not feel as dissatisfied with their own? Wouldn't they be more satisfied?
I don't think that's a good argument. I don't think I ever want to hide things from people because they could see something better otherwise. I don't think I necessarily agree with that.
You don't have any problem with assless chaps and pink pussy hats at a pride parade where there's kids around. You don't see any problem with that.
I think we should fuck everybody. Kids and everybody should be having sex. It's actually
That's what follows from what you just said,
It's
dude.
only your world or the world where children
No,
and
dude, that's literally
geriatrics
what
are having
follows
sex
from
with each
what you
other.
just
You
said.
got me.
There's no fucking.
I fell
we
into the
shouldn't be
trap.
hiding
I didn't even
anything.
realize that you got me on
You
pedophilia.
clearly
I didn't even realize
you
instantly.
clearly
You
did
got me
not
right
realize.
there. I fucked up
Yes.
so hard. Fuck me.
Yes, I know
it.
your irony brewing right now, but yes, you did fuck up.
Okay.
What you just said, it follows that we should just have basically naked sex parties in the streets with kids around watching because we shouldn't hide anything.
You shouldn't hide it.
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait a second. A guy smarter than me just emailed me, and he said, Destiny, if I was you in this debate right now, what I would probably argue is that there's some level of sexual openness and there's some level of sexual closeness, and that there's probably some middle ground in between this that's better, where in the past we were too sexually closed, and maybe right now we could argue we're too sexually open, but it doesn't have to be a binary thing like Zen Shapiro is disingenuously presenting it as. That was an email.
Who was the lifeline who emailed you?
It was just me talking. I made that up. That was a joke.
Okay.
Sorry, Andrew.
Gotcha.
I was actually thinking that the whole time. Yeah.
Was it? I mean, was it a joke? I don't know.
Don't you think there's like some reasonable middle ground?
No, it's got to be child f***ing, or people's eyes are averted from every sexual thing in society. That's what Ben said. That's what Zen said.
No, but don't you agree? Don't you agree that when we promote all this sexual, like it doesn't even have to be promiscuity, but just the sexual lifestyle in society today? Don't you agree that that kind of increases people's triggers and emotions?
You're making a fundamentally different
toward sex, toward what they would deem to be satisfactory sex, whether through porn and movies and music or whatever.
We're not arguing that right now. You're arguing right now that it's gone too far, but the argument is whether it should exist at all. I think it should exist to some extent. We should talk about sex more publicly and even have things like porn. Now, if you want to argue if it's gone too far, to some extent, we could probably say, yeah, it has, probably, for sure. But that's a different argument than should it be there at all or not. If you want to argue whether it's gone too far, we could, but then you've already conceded to me that, like, okay, yeah, maybe some amount is good, but it's gone too far. But I don't think that's what you want to argue.
Problem. Hang on, that's the problem, is that if we say that there's some middle ground that we can't identify, well, then it's all going to fall arbitrary, and we're going to end up with what I just suggested earlier, unless we have a different foundational principle that doesn't allow for it at all and says everybody's sexual activity should stay in the bedroom. You can talk about sex, but I'm talking about promoting sex.
Why does it have
which
to
is what we're seeing in media today.
Why does it have to be arbitrary? Why can't we like draw some lines in the sand? Like,
for
instance,
where's the line?
I don't know. We'd have to figure it out.
You think we should have some reasonable line that we draw when it comes to pornography?
Yeah. So, like, for instance, should children? Am I going to get to finish a single sentence, or are you going to soy the fuck out the entire time? Right. Okay. Sure. So, should children be allowed to watch porn? Probably not. I think that's an okay rule. So that's one line we could draw. Should there be special areas reserved for pornographic materials? So, for instance, some bars are titty bars, and most bars are not. That's probably an okay line to draw. Should it be the case that you could access, so this would be a different regulation. Maybe all porn should require at least like a 1 cent charge on a credit card to access. That could be a line that we draw. That would probably severely limit the amount of porn available to people today. Should porn require an ID upload? I think they talked about in the United Kingdom making that requirement. That could be a line. These are all things that we could argue about that would be reasonable lines, or maybe too far or not far enough that we could put.
Well, then let's argue about them. Where do you want to put the lines?
But this is completely besides the point of the debate. Like, where are we going to put the line on?
Well, it's just it's the avenue that I wanted to explore when it comes to people being non-sexually compatible because they are dissatisfied with their sex life because they see other shit going on that they want to partake in, like whatever their fantasy is on Pornhub. Like they see that and they're like, I want to actually do that, and then their wife's like, no, I'm not doing that crazy shit. And they're like, oh, my sex life sucks because I watch way too much porn. That's really what's going on, and we all fucking know it, by the way.
Okay, that could potentially be a reason. Do you think another reason could be the fact that they don't watch porn? They just have really shitty sex, and maybe the girl talks to one of her girlfriends, and she figures out that, she's the only one having really shitty sex.
It's not what the empirics are showing us. I mean, this is the whole problem with it, right? Is like if you guys concede that there's conditioning that goes on, environmental conditioning from the time a child is young, and that the environmental conditioning is definitely going to make a determinable outcome in that child's life. I don't think either of you are going to say it's not. Then we're going to have to point to the fact that these things that are happening, the over-glorification of sex, seeing sex everywhere, sex, is going to change people's attitudes significantly. So Zen's entire point here is to say, knowing that that's true, don't you think that we might be able to have, kind of a different way of looking at this if society wasn't so fucking sex crazed and we didn't have all this bullshit everywhere? That's his point.
Yeah, I acknowledge that could be a factor. Now I want Zen to acknowledge, or you, Andrew, that there could be another factor, and that could be just the shitty sex in of itself.
Well, sure. We just think it's far less significant.
Okay, well, what is that based on? Like, let's see the empirics.
Okay, so the empirics that it's number 4 on the divorce list.
No, that's comparing sex to like money and shit like that. We're talking about bad sex. What are the causes of bad sex? You're saying that
I think it's people's unrealistic expectations. I really do.
Okay, you're saying that's one of the reasons. I'm saying another reason is the fact that they're just having shitty sex outside of like anything else they're seeing. So I want you to show me the empirics that show that the outside influence of pornography is more significant than the what I said, which is basically the fact that.
Well, I mean, by which metrics do you want? Do you want the metrics of what's happened with porn addiction explosion in the last 10 years? Do you want the metrics for what pornography does to a person's brain? Do you want the metrics for when children are watching? Hang on. Do you want the metrics for when children are watching pornography? What their view of sex becomes just 2 years after? I mean, which metrics do you want for this?
No, I want some kind of
clearly massive pornography and sexualization of society everywhere is problematic, Alex.
I want some kind of study that suggests that pornography is playing more of a role than sexual incompatibility.
Well, I don't know that we can square those 1-to-1 through empirics, or at least I don't have them ready.
But you just said that it's so much more important than sexual incompatibility.
I don't know the study offhand, but I believe that something like close to 50% of marriages, of divorces rather, contain like some reason being pornography use in the divorce courts or whatever. So like there is a significant causal link or correlation between pornography and divorce in America. Again, I don't have that study. I could find it if you want, but I'm pretty sure it's true.
I don't think you can say that pornography is playing more of a role than sexual incompatibility. You have no evidence for that. You presented zero evidence for that.
Well, don't you agree? Just humor me here. If there's a guy who's married to a wife and the wife is generally pretty modest, she'll do most things within the standard, she'll do blowjobs or whatever. But she let's say she draws the line at anal in threesome. She won't allow threesome. But then the husband. His entire fucking search history is anal and threesomes on Pornhub, and all he wants is fucking anal and threesomes from his wife, but she won't give it to him. Don't you see why you would call that sexual incompatibility caused by his porn fetish? I mean, or at least deeply correlated to his porn fetish. I mean, this is just an example of how that could occur, and because many men watch porn, and because porn is so absurdly unrealistic and causes all these unrealistic expectations on men, that it could result in a lot of sexual incompatibility. Like it's sure. Actually, I mean, you could just reason it logically, but go ahead.
Well, sure, porn could play a role. Also, just the simple act that they're not sexually compatible could also play a role outside of any porn. Maybe neither one of them is watching porn. Could you foresee a situation where two people get married without having sex, neither one of them watches porn, and they just have totally different sex drives, they have totally different sexual interests? Like that could also happen.
Could happen. Yeah, I'm sure it could happen. But I just think it's a lot easier to make it work when you're not being influenced by all these external absurd factors like porn.
Yeah, probably too much porn use is bad. Sure, I don't think anyone's arguing against that.
I think any porn use at all is bad. But yeah, no. Okay.
I don't see how that ties into the argument at all.
I mean, it kind of ties in the sense of like. Porn and all the sexual promiscuity that's promoted in the media and in just everything mainstream today by normies is essentially due to the fact that premarital sex is considered normal. People that are, I think abstinence is like sub 10% of the population at this point. In 2022, like less than 10% of people remain abstinent until marriage. It's not common, but because everybody's promiscuous, everybody has premarital sex, everybody's into this stuff, it's popularized by porn, it's popularized by media. There's all these factors that go into all these things that then result in sexual incompatibility. But if we get rid of all this influence, there's nothing that people are going to have a reference to say they're sexually incompatible, because all they're going to know is what they have with their partner. And if it's done the way that BPF and I prescribe, it's not just about how good the sex is. there's so much more to a marriage and to a relationship than just how good it feels when you stick your dick in her hole. Like, that's ridiculous, dude.
And we know that these, hang on, Alex, we know that these societal trends and norms occur. We can look at a country like Japan, for instance, where there's some normalcy there, where after marriage, sex is only used for reproduction, period. And then the woman wears the pants in the household and gives an allowance to the husband. It's a big joke there. And that's led to a lot of the young men checking out, not just that reason, but that's one of the reasons for them checking out and becoming herbivores. And what a herbivore is Japanese kid who checks out of the dating scene. But that's a cultural norm that's there. So these things are environmentally influenced in a big way, is all we're saying. And we know that this culture right now does not frown on premarital sex at all. So what we're saying is, like, maybe they ought to a little bit. Maybe we ought to bring some of this madness back.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally foresee a society if let's say we ban porn, we ban any kind of erotica or sex writing. I still think you're going to get situations where a married couple realize they're sexually incompatible and then they get divorced. Right. So I don't think you're going to solve the problem just by getting rid of porn.
You can't solve anything completely, dude. Like, there's always going to be unforeseen circumstances. We're just saying that there's these kind of factors we can point to that I would argue do lead to people's sexual expectations becoming higher than they should be otherwise, because porn is unrealistic.
We could also point to sexual incompatibility and people not having sex before marriage and not finding this shit out and then getting married and realizing they have absolutely nothing in common in the bedroom. Like, I know it's kind of anecdotal, but I'll use my cousin as an experiment. This is a true story. My cousin got married to a chick he barely knew, right? And when we asked him, why is he getting married so fast? He's like, oh, I really want to have sex. And in the Bible, it says you shouldn't have sex until marriage. We're like, okay, dude, interesting plan. 2 months later, they got divorced, right? What do you think he could have done to make that relationship better, to avoid getting divorced?
Before you guys answer that,
here's what he could have done.
Wait, stop, Andrew, stop.
Okay.
Last intermission is the last 30 minutes, last half hour of the debate. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Kevin, will you shut the hell up, dude? Will you shut your fucking mouth? Can we get a mute on this Kevin Ray Wilder guy? He's been talking way too much, hogging the fucking mic. Shut this guy up. All right, sorry, continue.
I will say, Kevin, you did a very good job modding this. Like, honestly, this is fun.
Well, the less I talk, the better. I mean, when it got a little bit crazy there, that's what people watch for. So why would I stop it?
Okay, so
as long as we stay on track of what we're talking about. So we were talking about pornography and how it relates to
So real quick. So actually, because I was linked this earlier. I've been reading this. So you linked me something from the Institute for Family Studies. We're just curious, and I'm not going to use this as discredit study, but are these people that are generally like pro-family, pro-religious group, pro-whatever?
I don't exactly. It says Institute of Family Studies, so I'm sure that they do.
Okay, just curious. All right, just curious. Sure. So I'm reading down here through the data, and I'm kind of reading through some of the conclusions that the author is drawing. And there's a couple of interesting things about the survey that the person brings up that I wasn't even aware of. So the idea that a marriage works most for women that have like 0 to 1 partners might not have anything to do with how many sexual partners they've had at all. It might just be that they found a really, really good person after 0 to 1 partners. Oh. That might be the case. So if you find your quote unquote soulmate after 0 or 1 partners, then it might be the case then that, like, of course you're not going to have more partners after that. But the interesting trend that they point out is that your chances of that marriage lasting increase from 2 to 3 partners and increase from 3 to 4 to 5 partners. So having more partners after that actually shows a decrease. So if you've had sex with 1 or 2 people, you're better off trying 2 or 3 more people, and you actually have more success. Oh. And it's more interesting.
But it does say that the highest success is 0. The longest lasting marriages are with 0 partners.
Correct. But the person writing this article doesn't mention anything about how the reason why is the reason why is because she hasn't had sex. So, for instance,
that's all a study or a survey is just they're just
hold on. If we trust them to gather the data, we should look at their analysis of the data as well. So he says, my best guess rests on the notion of overemphasized comparisons. In most cases, a woman's 2 premarital sex partners include her future husband and 1 other man. The second sex partner is firsthand proof of a sexual alternative to one's husband. These sexual experiences convince women that sex outside of wedlock is indeed a possibility. The man involved was likely to have become a partner in the course of a serious relationship, and women inclined to hook up will have had more than 2 premarital partners, thereby emphasizing the seriousness of the alternative. Of course, women learn about the viability of non-marital sex if they have multiple premarital partners, but with multiple partners, each one represents a smaller part of a woman's sexual and romantic biography. Having 2 partners may lead to uncertainty, but having a few more apparently leads to greater clarity about the right man to marry. The odds of divorce are lowest with 0 or 1 premarital partners, but otherwise, sowing one's oats seems compatible with having a lasting marriage. And then they go on to talk about how there are people that have many partners, so 10 plus. However, they also point out a lot of confounds with that. And they say, for instance, people who suffered childhood sexual abuse are more likely to have extensive sexual histories, and childhood abuse also increases the odds of a problematic marriage. Andrew, mute your fucking phone! Sorry.
That's literally what I just did, was grabbed it and muted it.
So it seems like even in here, and I'm assuming that this website is a very pro-family, like pro-abstinence website. Even here, it seems that the authors are conceding that, of course, somebody with like 10 plus sexual partners, like Alex pointed out earlier, if somebody tells me they've had 30 sexual partners and they're 18 years old, it probably doesn't really have to do with the sex. There's probably some other shit going on there that's leading that person to have a very fucky life. Or if somebody's like 35 years old and they've had 30 sexual partners, okay, like this is probably more reasonable. Or like 20 sexual partners by like 30 or 35. And I think the author of this goes on to point out. So just on that fact of like having more sexual partners is necessarily decreasing your ability of having a lasting marriage. First of all, by the data you provided, which I'm assuming is already biased in your favor, that's not true. And then secondly, the reasons to explain
it's just because it decreases from 2 to 3. I'm looking at it too. It decrease, like the likelihood of divorce decreases from 2 to 3, and then again minor from 3 to 4 or 5. But then after that, it goes right back up. So once you have more,
once you get to 10 plus partners, yes,
that's when it's at the no. I'm looking. If we're looking at the same graph, it says Figure 1 chances of divorce after 5 years of marriage. It says so from 0 to 1 to 2. The chances go up, chances of divorce.
Yep.
And then from 3 to 4 to 5, they go down a little bit. But then from 6 all the way to 10, they just go right back up.
But looking at this graph, having 9 partners gives you a higher chance of a successful marriage after 5 years than having 2 partners.
Okay, but we're arguing for 0, which has the best chance of a
successful. Sure, that's fine, but I'm just saying that the way that correlation looks seems to imply that there's something more going on here than just saying more sex is bad. Because hold on, again, a partner. No, wait. I'm thinking about it. No, let me just finish.
Hold on, Zen. Let Destiny go.
Let him go.
What you're doing is you're just looking at the graph and you're not, 1, reading what the author has said about the graph, what they've typed about it, and then 2, you're not engaging with why the numbers might look the way they do. So, for instance, if I look at somebody with 0 or 1 partner, right? Maybe it's the case that when you were 18 or 19, you fucking found your fucking soulmate. This is like, holy shit, this is my greatest partner ever. That's amazing. And then you get together with that partner, and then your marriage sticks forever. But if that's the case, then of course you're going to have a successful marriage with only 0 or 1 partner. That you found like the person right off the bat. But just because you could have dated around before finding that person doesn't necessarily mean that you would have damaged your chance with that person. You're just, by virtue of the data, it's probably going to be that somebody with 0 or 1 partner has a higher chance of maintaining a longer marriage because they probably ran into their...
That's not just from the data. That was from your own internal reasoning right at the beginning of this debate. And I can give you the timestamp if you want, where you claim that you think that women are going to have the most successful chance of finding the best partner for themselves the lower their body count is. So it's not just from the data. The data is just one more tool to add on top of your own reasoning skills.
I'm just reading the author's writings about the data.
To be clear, the dialectic here is we're arguing for 0 and you guys are arguing for or either neutral or just anything in between, 0 to many. And with 0 partners, it's showing like in all 3 like sects of the study that they did, it's like 5 to 10% chance of marriage or divorce. Sorry. But then when you go to 9 partners, which, yes, it is technically lower, 6 to 9 partners is technically lower than 2 partners, it's still a 25% chance of divorce in this study. I mean, it's still a significantly greater chance of divorce.
Sure, I understand. But what you're trying to say is that because of the greater number of sexual partners, they're getting divorced. But another explanation could just be the people with 0 or 1 partners, the first person that they started dating happened to be the one that was like the most compatible for them.
Yeah, but that's just like...
Or they're more religious.
That's just another maybe who knows what argument.
Well, but the problem is that my hypothesis.
Hang on. In reality, with these studies and with these surveys and all this data, you can't really draw causal links between anything. All you can do is point to correlations that appear to be strong or weak or nonsense or whatever. And
if you can't draw any causal links, then you can't give any prescription. So why would you even link me to this study? If you're just going to say it's if you're just going to say it's only
that's
correlated,
the problem with empirical data. Yeah,
no, hold
I agree.
on. That's not. You can draw causal links from empirical data sometimes. It just depends on what the data is investigating.
Well, in this particular scenario, I mean, you would have to point me to something specific that you're talking about. From what I'm giving you a hypothesis. Data just provides correlation. It doesn't give you a cause.
Well, wouldn't it logically follow that every time you add a sexual partner, your chance of being married goes down? But that's not what the data is showing. Like, that's just, if you think about it logically, that's what it founds. If let's say, wait, here, real quick.
Just wait, justify on that. Wait, no, because that was a wait, justify on that. Let's say, for instance, you let's just ask people how many people you've dated. Let's say I go to one group of people and I say like, oh, like how many people have you dated before getting married? And this group was like 0 to 1 person, and another group was like 5 people. Well, chances are the people that dated 0 to 1 people, their marriage is probably good because they found like the one like right away. Whereas the other people that dated 4 or 5 people first, they're still like dating around to find like that person. So it's going to cause like, so now the question is like, oh, well, hold on. Maybe dating less is actually making these people more successful. It's like, well, no, it's just the people that have only had 0 to 1 dating partners prior to getting married or whatever, just found somebody that was super compatible right away and then they got married. So it's like a data artifact.
Yeah. I mean, that's just another like if, maybe, who knows what argument. But if you're going to say like, that's why I'm just willing to concede if it's like having 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, whatever partners doesn't really change much as far as your chances of marriage or divorce. I might just concede that. But again, our argument is that the most ideal scenario is abstinence, 0 sexual partners, and that's what the data supports. That's what matters here. That's
your logic supports that.
No.
But is that correlation or causation? Like, can you see how maybe someone who has 0 partners before marriage maybe found their partner like their high school sweetheart, or maybe they're more religious, and religious people are less likely to get divorced, right? Like versus someone who has 8 or 9 partners, maybe they're not religious. Religious people are less likely to get divorced, right? So maybe this is a correlation thing instead of a causation thing. If you think about it, like if this was a causation thing, something inherently about you having sex with other people caused your chance of marriage to go down, then you would see the chart just go all the way up. Every time you add a new person, your chance of marriage goes down, but that's not what the data is showing. So that's just as a correlation, not causation.
Yeah, because again, you can't just find a causal link between anything really with just one piece of data.
Well, of course. Well, let's say
you can point to a series of correlations that are strong enough to say maybe we should live this way, we should act this way, we should not do this.
I agree.
I mean,
especially if they match up with other contributing factors.
I agree 100% with what you're saying, Zen. But here's the issue that I think, okay? Let's say that, because what we have is some data, and what we're both trying to do is come up with a hypothesis that the data fits. That's what we're trying to figure out. And you're telling me that the more partners you have in general, having more partners is going to increase the likelihood of you being divorced within 5 years. Therefore, by virtue of having more partners, you're more likely to get divorced. Like just that thing, there's like some link there. And I'm saying, okay, that could be true. But the problem I'm running into is when I look at the data, past 2 partners, you're better off having 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 partners before that trend actually gets worse than having 2 partners. Now, if you were if your hypothesis was to say abstinence is best and having more partners is actually damaging your ability to maintain long marriages, I wouldn't expect to see the trend reverse at 2 partners, then reverse again at 4 to 5 partners, and only get past 2 partners once you've had 10 or more partners.
But it's not, okay, for one, it's not a very significant trend reversal. Like they're like again, 0 to 1 is like this, and then like 3 to 4 to 5 is kind of just like a very shallow decrease, and then it goes back up. It's not very
so it looks like 1 partner is 21%, and 6 to 9 partners is 26%. That's not a huge difference in.
It's no compared to 5% versus 30%.
Sure, I'm just saying that
5% versus 25%.
Sure, but your difference from 1 to 2 partners is it goes up from 21% to 30%, and then from 2 partners to 6 to 9, it drops all the way back down to 26% from 30%. From 4 to 5 partners, it's down to 24%. I'm just saying that it doesn't seem like your hypothesis is explanatory. Explain to me how it changes from 2 to 9 partners. Why does it? Why does it do that?
All three of these graphs show the greatest changes.
You're just restating. Oh, we're in the pre-sub area. Okay, I've said my piece.
No, all three of these categories on this in this graph the greatest changes that occur are from 0 to 1 to 2. Everything else that changes is much more mild, even if it reverses. But there could be even something to be said about this. Like you guys keep saying, like, oh, what if external factor occurs here, external factor occurs here? What if it's just simply the case that people they experiment with sexual partners, like multiple sexual partners, and they realize this isn't actually ideal, and they become more willing to settle down after.
Then you would expect after 10 plus partners that number would be even lower, but it's not. So I just want to be stated.
Yeah, I think at that point you just become a lost cause.
Yeah, so I just want to state one more time very clearly for the audience, because he won't answer the question, right? So if his...
You didn't ask a question. I'll answer your question if you ask it.
Okay, sure. So my question is how can you explain the reversal of your trend at 2 partners if your hypothesis is that more partners will cause you to have a higher chance of divorce?
It's not our hypothesis.
Yeah, I don't think I said cause, but I said generally speaking, there is a correlative trend with more sexual partners being less desirable for the opposite sex. At least
but you don't think it's causal,
or also that it's less likely to lead to a stronger marriage.
Me and Alex, I think we 100% agree. If you're not going to put any causal link at all, chances are, like most religious people or like arranged marriages, are probably 0 to 1. I would agree with that 100%. Yeah, if that's what you want to say.
But like, if you agree,
if there's no causal link, then
you guys can only make moral prescriptions based on correlations. Like, what are the causal links that you make?
Well, I can make observations about relationships and say something like sexual compatibility is a really important part of a relationship. We can back that up with data that you can see some people will get divorced because of sexual incompatibility. And I'll say, well, in that case, you should probably have sex before marriage. That's a reason, that's a prescriptive statement to make. Now, if you want to say, well, hold on, I don't think that's good because having more partners is bad. Well, is having more partners bad? Because when I look at your data, when you say having more partners is bad, you're implying that by virtue of sleeping with more partners, you're decreasing your chances at a successful marriage. But that's not true. Your hypothesis doesn't, your data doesn't fit your hypothesis.
It is true. Anything that's more partners past 0, anything that's more partners past 1 does decrease it.
Having more partners past 1 doesn't mean that it's causing it. It's just correlated with it. I don't know what 0 and 1 partners is. It might have just been somebody that met their like soulmate really early on in life.
Or they got an arrangement.
It is just a correlative factor. There is no causal link.
You can't say just correlative. Your whole point is that this is causal. If you say it's correlative, you've undermined your entire argument. Your whole point is that having premarital sex is worsening your ability to have a successful marriage.
I'm not undermining the argument because that's effectively what every single empirical data-based argument is based on, is just correlation. Like,
and
for
your
example,
reasoning, and your own reasoning.
If a vegan says like all-cause mortality is lower in people that eat plant-based diets versus not, like, that's just a correlation. It doesn't necessarily follow that veganism causes lower mortality.
It will if
but
you
it's
control.
Correlated, and that's what their argument would be based on. I'm not saying I agree, by the way.
It will if you can like control for enough variables. That's the whole point. If it was the case theoretically that I could control for every single variable in a person's lifestyle and diet, and the only thing that I'm altering is like the amount of meat that I'm having the person eat, then I could go on to make a statement that like there's a good chance that there's a causal link here between the consumption of meat and all-cause mortality. But that's assuming that I'm controlling for enough other variables, which this study goes on to admit that it doesn't do. It doesn't control, for instance, for adverse childhood.
What study can control for enough variables, though? There's always
that. Well, that's always the difficulty of doing psych research, of course. But like, I mean, you do this. Obviously, these are all retrospectives. But I mean, the strength of a survey could show that. So if they would have asked questions about like childhood sexual abuse, that's one thing we could have ruled out. If they would have asked questions about arranged marriages, that's one thing we could rule out. Once you rule out enough alternative hypotheses, then we can fall back on one. Your hypothesis is that more sexual encounters are going to cause you to have a higher chance of divorce. They're just going to lead to more divorce. But I don't think we've controlled adequately for enough variables to really say that. And even the author of your study or the person reviewing it seems to agree that there are other things that could account for it.
So, well, do we agree then that effectively, like from what you just said, studies can't prescribe oughts? You can't get an ought from a study. You can't get a moral ought.
I mean, that's a human. Yeah, of course. You can't get an ought from an is, but that's not
right. So
I mean, we kind of can.
Well, then there's no moral argument that can even be made in your guys' worldview. So
we're just using
unless you're willing, maybe we should have just had a meta ethics debate, Destiny. Maybe we should have gone there.
Well, everyone here agrees that we can, in a way, get an ought from an is. So we're just like analyzing the is right now because the is going to determine our oughts. I think all of us here agree that we ought to have healthy relationships. We all agree that we ought to have healthy marriages. So if that's the case, then we're going to analyze descriptively the data that's going to show us what's more likely or less likely to lead to healthy marriages. So of course, if we can draw a causal link between more sex, and I think Alex would probably admit this, I would admit this, if you could actually show me that all else equal, just having more sex is damaging a lot of your future relationships, then I would say, oof, I think we should probably pump the brakes a lot then on casual sex, or push people towards having as little sex as possible. But I don't believe that's the case. And I don't think I've been presented with evidence to believe that's the case.
Well, don't you think that that's the case via your own reasoning, though? If you think that the more sexual partners a woman has, the less desirable she's going to be for the partner that she ends up wanting to have?
Not necessarily.
So you don't trust your own reasoning either?
Well, it's not my own reasoning. That would just have to be something that is demonstrated, I guess.
So even though there is empirical evidence to support that, and your own intuitive reasoning tells you that still isn't good enough for you, what metric can we possibly present that would be?
Well, does not support that.
Yeah, there'd have to be like views, because my understanding is that people's views of sexual activity has changed over time. My guess is going to be that in 1970, a woman with 5 partners is like disgusting, but in the year 2020, a woman with 5 partners is probably not that fucked. Like those are probably views that change over time, would be my guess.
Yeah, I agree that those views change over time, but I think that the foundation of the fact that having more partners equals less desirability is something we would probably agree on.
Yeah, but if
that's
that's
an
a trend,
intuitive sense, right?
Real quick, to go on what Destiny just said about how 5 partners 50 years ago or whatever is disgusting. 5 partners today is more viewed as normal. But referencing back to this study we just looked at, having 0 partners in the 2000s, it was the least likely to get married. And then across the board, having 2, 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 9, or 10 plus in the 2000s had a higher chance of divorce than anything prior. So having more partners in the 2000s, this study shows that they're actually more likely to get divorced.
Sure, but I mean, I understand, but like, so for instance, like looking at this study, for instance, like I can pull this quote out, like the percentage of Americans who believe that premarital sex among adults was not wrong at all was 29% in 1970, but in the 2000s it was 49%. From 2012 to from 2010 to 2012 it was 58%, right? So I imagine these are like opinions and shit that are changing over time, like. So it might not be the case.
No, I agree that generally the societal view on premarital sex has become much more loose, like lax. Like people don't really care much for premarital sex. But then what we see is more divorce.
Sure, but
Zen, so if someone has 2 sexual partners, would you then, if we're going off the study, recommend for them to get like 6 or 7 more sexual partners because that will actually lower the divorce risk?
Rephrase it or just restate it. What are you asking?
Let's say you have someone who already has 2 sexual partners. They're not a virgin. Would you recommend for them to get another 4 or 5 sexual partners before they get married because that will further lower their divorce risk?
No, because for one, I don't think it lowers it to any significant degree. Like,
wait, but
it's
does.
It's like it's very shallow. Like I said, the graph is very shallow when we're talking about that decrease. But 2, I think it's more of an intrinsic factor. I don't know if it's just sex alone that's causing this, but I think it's the mindset that somebody has when they're engaging in promiscuous and premarital sex that is also leading to their failed marriage.
And we can see that because of the variation of the sexual partners that happens depending on the time frame in which it's happening, whether it's the 2000s or whatever. It significantly sways based on what's going on with societal environment. So no, we still wouldn't make that prescription.
Okay, so you're not going to make that prescription even though the data supports it, but we're supposed to make the prescription that one should not have premarital sex at all.
Yeah, but the data supports it in another way if societal conditions are correct, and so we would try to move towards those societal conditions.
Like we're essentially just saying like what we are advocating for is the most amount of people having the closest to 0 sexual partners premarital as possible. We want the most amount of people as possible.
Sure, we understand that, but you just don't have a really compelling hypothesis to support that.
Like,
right?
Oh, you already got 2, 3, 4 partners. Should you have more? Like, I don't know. It just becomes arbitrary at that point. I think
it's not arbitrary according to your data. Sorry.
Yeah, the data that you're using to base your argument on suggests that you'd be better off having a few more sexual partners if you already have 2.
Based on current environmental standards, but those environmental standards, when changed, you see the trend changes with it.
Well, we live in the current world. We don't live in an idealistic fantasy world.
Well, it's not idealistic in fantasy to want to change environmental conditions to get the outcomes that we want in society.
But you can't change the world. You can just change your own behavior.
Well, people, first of all, a single individual can change the world. We've seen that 1,000 times. But that aside, All we're doing
Andrew,
is
do you really think
advocating.
that
All
people
that we're
stop
doing is
having
advocating
sex?
for what we'd like to see and the changes we would like to see. We understand that there might be environmental changes that are necessary in order to bring us even closer to that zero marker. So I don't even know
don't really
what the
understand
fight
double
is here.
standard. Why we're supposed to use the study to change our position that people shouldn't have any premarital sex when you're not willing to use that same exact study to change your position when the data supports that you go from 2 to 6 partners.
But it doesn't. That doesn't change our actual argument. Like, let's just say I concede. Yeah, sure. Have 2 more partners after you had 4. Okay, but my overarching argument is 0 is best. That's the argument we're making. Is that 0 is
Right,
best?
but
Obviously, you can't undo if you've already had 2.
That's great. And we're saying, let's say we agree with that. And you said 0 is best. But if somebody's had 2, they might as well have 7 more.
Okay, well,
I don't know
even
about-
if true, it would still be optimal to have 0, so we never get past that to have the 7 more. So it's still not contending with the argument.
Yeah, like even
Well,
if we concede all of it, yeah, have 7 more, but 0 is still best. The argument is that 0 is best, and all the data shows it. Or all the data shows it.
And our logic shows it.
Okay, I mean, yeah, like your argument changes multiple times, but okay.
No, it's
I'll take
remained
it
the
as
same
go.
the whole time.
And we've
0 is
restated it
best.
multiple times.
Okay, going back to my cousin example. So what do you think my cousin could have done to have a less likely chance of his relationship ending in failure, or less likely of him getting a divorce? I'll phrase it like that.
There was
What
a
do you
lot
think?
of things the cousin should have been changing. That's why I said that there's a mindset that goes along with it, but I think that's a totally different
Well,
subject. If you're going
think is
into a
the big-
marriage, if you're going into a marriage or a relationship at all, just like with the intention of like I want to have good sex, and that's like all he cares about.
What's your certainty that if your cousin had sex with her beforehand, he would still be married?
He probably would not get married, and that would be for the better.
Okay, so what is your level of certainty that he would not have gotten married?
Pretty high.
Why?
Because clearly the sex was not that good.
Okay, so what you're saying is that your intuitive reasoning is telling you that the same intuitive reasoning that tells you that the more times a woman has sex, the less desirable she is to the opposite sex, right? Just generally.
I said to some guys, that will play a role. It also depends on what the number is. I don't really think there's a difference between like a girl having 1 sexual partner and 5 sexual partners. But if we're talking about between like 100 sexual partners, yeah, that can be a red flag for a good amount of guys.
But not 50?
I don't know. I mean, that's a little bit less than 100, a little bit more than 5. Yeah, I mean, like there's levels to it.
Okay, so then your logic tells you that basically every single time a woman has a new sexual partner, her chances do decrease for her being able to net the person that she wants, right?
No, I think it's like a threshold thing. It's like you can drink and drive until a certain point, and then you've reached that threshold, and you can't drink and drive.
Well, what's the threshold then?
Well, it depends on the guy.
Well, I mean, so what do you think generally it is? Like 6, 7?
I really don't know. I can only speak for
you don't. Okay, you don't know, but what you do know is that you do think that it's less desirable the more sexual partners a woman has for most men. Probably there is some type of threshold there, at least for most men. Even if it's 10,000, there is some threshold somewhere, right? And you can't get to that threshold if you're not having sex with multiple men, right? Therefore, every single time you have sex with a new woman has sex with a new man, this is going to lead her one step closer to that threshold, and that would be bad, Alex.
Not if she doesn't reach that threshold. And also, even if she does reach that threshold, there's still going to be plenty of guys who are down to marry her. So I don't think she's going to be hurting at all. You can have a chick with 500 bodies, and there's still going to be guys lining out of the door to marry her. So yeah, I don't really think that's going to impact her chances in a drastic way.
Why do you think that there's going to be guys lining out the door to marry like an ugly chick who's had lots of sex with lots of guys? Like the chick that you just take home, the chick that you take home from the bar at the end of the day because nobody else wants her or whatever, Alex.
Well, I never said she was ugly. You just added that condition in there.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm asking you. What if she's ugly? Do you think that then it drastically decreases her chances the more body count she has?
I think her being ugly is going to play more of a role in her body count.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
So you
for
don't
sure.
think that like
I
an
think-
ugly woman offering up virginity, for instance, would be far more valuable than an ugly woman who also is like, very promiscuous?
No,
Than a pretty
I'm
woman
saying
that's
that.
promiscuous, right?
Yeah. I think a pretty woman that's promiscuous will do a lot better in the dating marketplace than an ugly woman who's a virgin.
So, again, though, if an ugly woman has just 10 sexual partners, don't you think that still would be less desirable for a man than an ugly woman who's had 0?
Depends on the guy, but I think again, 10 is
I think if we say
probably
like
pretty
all
low.
else equal, it's probably less desirable. Sure, if all else is
Yes,
equal.
thank
Yes,
you.
all else equal.
That's all I was asking.
I think there's still going to be a line out the door to marry that chick. So even if she's ugly, even if her body count is 10, so I don't think her life is going to be impacted in any negative way because of that.
Okay.
Let me ask this question. Okay.
I'm sorry. You can't. All else being equal, there's no way fairly to end this, but the time is up, gentlemen. So now we're going to move into closing statements. BPF and Andrew and Zen get to do the last one since they had to get the second one on the first round. So Destiny and Alex, you can go first. Whoever wants to go first for their closing statement, you have 5 minutes.
Destiny, you want to go first?
Um,
I mean, I can do it if you
no,
want.
do we both get closing statements or just one of us?
Yes. No, you both get both.
Okay, I'll go first. I'll try not to use my whole 5 minutes here, okay? I didn't know that I was going to have to give like a detailed breakdown on sexual interactions. That's my mistake. I want to apologize to everybody here that I wasn't prepared with my erotica fan fiction in order to describe the difference between good sexual encounters and bad sexual encounters. I'll make sure that next time I come, I've got some good wank material for everybody here so that we can talk specifically about what that means. And then I'd also like to point out that the hypothesis given to describe how the data fits on the one study that Zen and Andrew provided, I don't believe was sufficient to prove that there is a causal link between having more sexual partners and having a higher rate of divorce. And if they're going to concede that there is no causal link, and we're going to say that it's all corollary, then I'll say, of course, it's the case that somebody that's only had 1 or 0 sexual partners has less of a chance getting divorced because that person has probably only dated 1 or 0 people, and they found somebody highly compatible in their first or second partner. And if that is the case, then of course they're going to have less sexual partners, and of course their marriage is going to be more likely to succeed. But that doesn't mean it's more likely to succeed because they had less sexual partners. It just means they happen to run into the person that they really love after dating 0 or 1 or 2 people. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for being very concise. I will hand it now over to Alex. Go for it, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Destiny said. I will just add that Zen and Andrew concede that sexual compatibility is at least somewhat of a relevant factor in determining the success of a marriage. And Zen, at least himself, said that you can increase your likelihood of finding out if you're sexually compatible by having premarital sex. So if you just follow this very simple logical train, then if you want to have long-lasting marriages, which is what Andrew and Zen want, and sexual compatibility is a factor that plays into it, and you can find out your sexual compatibility by having premarital sex, then what should you do? Oh, have premarital sex.
Awesome. Gentlemen, on the right side, you can choose either of you to go first, but it is now your turn for closing statements.
You can go first then.
Okay. I just want to point out, Alex said right at the end, he initially came into the debate claiming moral neutrality on premarital sex, and then he said at the end, we all heard it, play it back 30 seconds, you should have premarital sex. Interesting that he accused us of changing our argument the whole time and then changed his at the last second in his closing statement.
Just following
excuse me. Very interesting. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think we made our case pretty clear here that obviously from our own worldview, abstinence is ideal just due to Christian ethics, but we didn't have to even argue that. Destiny was the one who was trying to push it to meta ethics, ironically. But we provided, I have more studies and more data, but the data that I did provide supports the claim that being abstinent leads to a lower rate of divorce, or at least is highly correlated with a lower rate of divorce, which is all you can really do with a study. You can't provide causal chains and causal links of anything with studies that give you an ought claim. All they are is data that you then have to interpret and make prescriptions under your own interpretation. And as far as like the whole sexual compatibility thing, I really think that's an argument from just degenerate coomers, porn-addicted coomers that have been normalized by a porn-addicted, degenerate Coomer society to think that all that a relationship is sexual pleasure and sexual compatibility, whatever.
No one needs that at all.
Excuse me.
Alex,
Excuse me.
it's just a closing statement.
But
I'm saying,
even
like,
though
stop,
dude,
you can, Alex, you can respond.
Stop.
You can respond afterwards.
This is closing statements. I was charitable to you. I didn't interrupt you. You don't have to interrupt me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this has been these kind of arguments have been normalized in our society because sexual promiscuity and this Coomer mentality is just running rampant. Basically, everybody partakes in it one way or another. I'm sure even myself and Andrew are not perfect in that regard, but it doesn't mean we can't argue for it. And that what we are arguing for doesn't lead to a stronger family structure, a family unit, higher birth rates, less divorce, which is what society is built on, is the family unit. So I think we made our argument pretty clear and essentially pretty sound. So other than that, I did enjoy the conversation. I think it was relatively civil. Kevin did a good job. Pedro did a good job. Destiny, Alex, I appreciate you guys engaging. It was fun.
Yeah. So just to briefly add on to that, I appreciated the convo. I always appreciate the convos with Alex. I always find him to be very good faith. I know that we both get frustrated sometimes when we're going at it, but we do have good conversations, I feel like, and me and Destiny do too. So I appreciate both of you guys kind of humoring us tonight and taking this topic on. I feel like we got kind of bogged down on just the premarital sex, but I think that that's okay. That was something that needed to be kind of fought out so that we could even get anywhere with anything else, because like you guys really just don't think that any of that, is a big deal, basically. Like that's kind of our whole contention with Alex and the pickup crew, But remember, one of the things that was said here that's so key, and take this away because it's very important. Everybody present agreed and understands the fact that the more sexual partners a woman has, and we all reasoned this out, the more likely it is that she's probably not going to find Mr. Right or Prince Charming or the man of her dreams or sail off into the sunset and have that happily ever after. We know this for certain. We reasoned this out long before we got to the empirics, and the empirics just kind of backed us up. Right? The 0 play count is the play. That's for the best for a healthy society. And try to remember that it's super important that this adds up to what we intuitively kind of understand anyway with the current world that's around us. None of these guys are stupid. Destiny's not stupid. Alex isn't stupid. Zen isn't stupid. We understand that the more a woman screws around with multiple men, the less desirable she's going to be for the opposite sex. We understand this. I don't even think we need the empirical evidence to know this, but the empirical evidence does back it. And of course, that's going to be a problem. The more promiscuous a woman is, the less we want to have that woman around. It's just kind of the way that it is. So I did just want to kind of add that on to Zen's excellent closing statement and tell you guys once again, thanks for coming on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and that ends the debate. The debate is officially over, and we do things a little bit differently here on the Crucible. During this time now, me and Kevin get to take our mod hats off, and whatever notes we took down, we get to interact with the debaters and ask questions. Then we're going to move over into all the super chats and questions that I've been tracking this whole time to actually field to the debaters once again. So I'll field the first question Kevin,
hey,
I think
Joe,
you're
do you
going
think
to be.
we just say something for 10 seconds before we get into that?
Yeah.
It'll be 10 seconds, I promise.
Just respond to Zen. Make
Yeah.
it very quickly, please.
Okay, I think Zen made a pure straw man argument because no one claimed that sex was the only factor. That's it.
Oh, if we can do 10 seconds, can I ask one quick question of Andrew? Just because the data analysis part is really funny to me. Andrew, do you think that...
No,
just one question. And I won't even respond to his answer. I just want to ask one question.
Okay.
Empirically, do you think that the chances of you dying in a fire increase the more times a fireman shows up to your house?
I don't know.
Okay, that's
what do you mean?
That's all I got on that one. Okay.
Well,
okay.
I don't understand.
I know you don't understand. That's the whole point. We're good.
Oh, okay. Well,
okay.
So that tells us nothing. Glad that you were able to take your last 10-second cheap shot and it didn't go anywhere. Good for you.
went exactly
The
where I
point
expected
he's
it to
making.
No, stop. Moderator questions start now. Me and Kevin get to get in. You guys are over. Okay, we get the floor.
Can I just take a piss real quick?
Yes, Alex. Yes, Alex.
Okay.
Okay, so to Destiny.
What up?
This was my first question to you. Do you think theological compatibility, meaning religious beliefs, are outweighed by sexual compatibility for Christians in marriage?
It could be, but the thing is that like when I think of compatibility, I think there's like multiple factors to consider, and I really think people need to understand the concept of like a deal breaker. Like for when it comes to cars, I like the color blue. A car being blue would be like a pro for me, but if it's not blue, that'd be a deal breaker. A car being maybe I hate the color pink, right? A car being blue might be pro for me, and pink might be bad for me, but it's not a deal breaker, okay? But a car having 3 or 2 wheels would be a deal breaker. I can't drive; it doesn't work, right? So I think it's important to understand when we talk about things like sex might be having good sex might help the relationship, but it might be a deal breaker if you don't have it. But just because you do have it isn't enough. And then same thing with like the Christianity or like the religious thing. Having compatible religious beliefs, it might be really good, or it might be a deal breaker, or it might not, but it depends on the person. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was my deal breaker. I looked at Leslie and said, "Are you a Calvinist?" And she said yes. And I was like, "Check, please." And then next question, Destiny. During premarital counseling, do you think sex is ever discussed in depth, or do you think it's just topical?
Premarital counseling?
Yes.
I don't think talking about sex can tell you much about sex. You have to have it to know what the other person is like.
Okay. That's a fair answer. Alex, all else being equal, does porn improve or hinder an individual's sex life?
It depends on what extent. I think if you're going from like 0 to like a very small amount of porn, it could potentially improve it because it kind of teaches you what you like, what you're into, expands your horizons. I know it did for me. But going from like, I don't know, mild to moderate amount of porn to a lot of porn, then I think it would probably decrease your sex life. So I just think it depends like what point we're going to. From 0 to like 10%, yeah, I would say it probably increases. From like 40% to like 100%, no, it probably decreases.
Okay.
You know, one of the main arguments like against porn from our side is that it has like almost like a drug effect. Like the dopamine release is so strong that it causes you to crave more and more and more hardcore versions, more higher dosages, more often, that kind of thing. So the problem is that it's very hard to use porn like mildly and recreationally, like once a month on a weekend or something. Like a lot of people are doing it like 5 to 10 times a week. Like. So.
Well, that's literally what I do personally. I watch porn like once a month recreationally. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not saying you can't do that. Like some people, I'm sure, could do heroin once a month on a weekend, but most people that do heroin are doing it like 5 times a week, 5 to 7 times a week, or more. So that's all. No.
Okay.
I don't think porn is nearly as addictive as like heroin. I think it's closer to like, I don't know, recreational marijuana or something.
I think it's more addictive actually, but yeah, go ahead.
Gotcha. Okay. Last question, and then I'll hand it over to Kevin for his round of questions. All else being equal, Alex, does a higher body count improve or hinder your pair bonding capabilities?
All else being equal, again, I think it depends what the reference point is. If we're going from like 2 bodies to 7 bodies, according to the study that the Crucible uses, it actually apparently seems to increase your pair bonding. But if we're going from 7, if we're taking the data at face value, if we're going from 7 to like 20, then it seems to decrease. So I really just think it depends on your starting point.
I'd be really interested.
Kevin.
Like when we say pair bonding, what the fuck are we talking about? Like
I don't know what that means either.
Well, it's a very common thing because people talk about like oxytocin and like the chemicals, the love pair bonding and blah blah blah. But it's like, what does that actually feel like? What does it mean to feel pair bonded?
Well, it's like pure
the reason
all you do is like think about the person.
Yeah, the reason why I brought it up is because we had a program. This has kind of like been a saga that we've been on with Alex. There was a moment where his first debate partner brought up some kind of weird naturalistic BS that Zen called it, that all led to saying that the pair bonding of a person who has a higher body count is down. And then I remember, and I'm not trying to impose this on you, Alex, but I remember I thought you agreed with that, but I was testing if you still agree with it now. You can definitely change your opinion. That's perfectly fair. I was just seeing where that was.
Yeah,
Kevin, questions over to you.
I wouldn't say I'm like changing my opinion. I think that's basically been my. I think it just depends on your reference point and starting point. That's like saying like, is alcohol destructive? Well, yeah, if you are drinking a lot, I think it is very destructive. But if you're drinking very socially, maybe it's actually good for you because you're interacting with people. It acts as a social lubricant. So I don't know. I just think it depends on your reference point, your starting point.
So just my quick 10 seconds. Destiny, do you really not know what pair bonding is? You don't think you do?
Okay, for somebody that opened the debate with, I don't know what sexual compatibility means, for you to come at me and go like, you don't know what pair bonding means? That's pretty rich. But no, I don't. If you want to explain it to me, go for it.
Do you have a lot of sexual partners?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, are you going to explain what pair bonding means, or?
Nope, no need. I was just curious. That was my 10 seconds.
Okay, but I was willing to explain sexual compatibility, but okay. I think that kind of shows that you don't have any clear understanding or even definition of what pair bonding is, but all right.
All right, I hand it over to my partner mod, Kevin.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so Destiny, do you think that premarital sex contributes to the incel epidemic? And if it does, do you think that having a monogamy normative society would help sort of quell the incel epidemic?
No, I feel like having a monogamy oriented society would make it even harder for people to fuck. Like, I don't think incel people, it's not like incel people are like, oh God, like I can find all of these relationships. I just can't find casual sexual partners. Like, incel people can have trouble just finding out where to even find women to talk to start to date. I don't know if like forcing everybody to be monogamous would all of a sudden give incels greater access to women in some sexual marketplace or make women more likely to date like incel people.
Don't you agree that it would kind of at least quell that whole like 90-10 theory where like 10% of the men are getting 90% of the women and vice versa?
I don't even know if I believe that theory. I'd have to dig into that a lot more.
I think that's definitely true. That like 10 to, I don't know, 80-20 even. But like if you're a top, here's
why I don't. If in terms of the total amount of sex happening, possibly, but if you're a top 10% of guys, you're not fucking 90% of women. You're fucking the top 10% of women, right? Like you might fuck a lot more women. So like each one of those guys in that top 10% is fucking a lot of the women. But like
I think it's more so. Yeah, you might be correct on that to some degree or whatever. But like it's more. I think the theory more so states that like 90% of women are after 10% of men. And like 90% of men are after the 10% of women. So
they might like match with them on Tinder or something, but I don't think it's inhibiting a person's ability to date within like their strata, right?
I think it would. I mean, think about it. If you're like matching with a bunch of people on Tinder per se, or you're on some dating app, and you match with somebody who's in that top 10%, and you're like super attracted to them, but then everybody else who's like out of that top 10%, you're like, well, this one's way hotter, so I don't really care about them. You're gonna like neglect them almost. I guess
it's possible, but I mean, if you're a woman and you settle for just being fuck zoned by a guy who's just like banging you and like once a month and that's all you see him and that inhibits you from dating. I mean, like, I think there's an interesting broader conversation to have about how women's like expectations might be a little bit skewed in like the hyper feminist society where like you saw, this is what Kevin Samuels fought against his whole career is a woman will call in saying like, I'm 36, I've got 2 kids, I want a 6-figure man who's like in his late 20s or some shit. It's like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? Like that probably exists to some extent, but I don't think enforcing monogamy is going to change any of that. I don't think so. Not to mention the fact that you could never enforce monogamy. But like, even if you could, I don't know if it would necessarily change that or not. You might just have more women that are single and are fine being single.
Kevin, can I ask you a question, actually?
Sure. Yeah, that's weird. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's weird. It's kind of odd. Do you think it's a good thing to have a person who's saying, I want a guy who's in his late 20s and is a 6-figure man as some of their criteria for a partner in life? Do you think that's good?
Like if a woman says it? Like, oh, I want a man who's in their late 20s and makes 6 figures?
Like, do you stick around for that conversation now? Like, oh, that's what you're after?
I mean, if they're very forward with that, I appreciate how forward they are. But yeah, I would probably just write them off as a gold digger.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I kind of understand it from their standpoint. You know, it's like you have a very short range, like, you know, age 18 to 25 to be like extremely attractive to men as a whole. So if you want to get a husband, and you know, that's like your one time to be opportunistic, for lack of a better word. But yeah. But anyway, I appreciate that question. That was kind of a surprise. I'm going to ask my second question to the right side now. So I think I understand you guys, you know, being Christians, you have, in terms of your normative ethics, you have a deontological stance. I probably have an idea of what you're going to say, but can you acknowledge that there are going to be different prescriptions for the individual as opposed to the society as a whole when it comes to something like premarital sex. And I'll reference what we talked about earlier. There's going to be some people who already have a body count of, more than one, or, already a bunch.
Mhm.
Like, are those people already screwed, or should they just keep fucking? It doesn't matter. Like, I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are on
The
that.
Orthodox Church understands this as part of our own dogma. And we understand that the individualistic applications cannot be so rigid as to not be achievable by people, and that every person's individual circumstances are different. That's why the combination in the deontological ethics works so well, because they can be applied. Everybody can find Christ. And we understand that people sin often, and that they're in various situations in their life all over the spectrum. But the goal is to bring that back to where there's some sort of decency, normalcy within the Christian framework and the worldview. So we're not so rigid as to say that, of course, like you have to pray facing north at 1 p.m. every day, or that would be ridiculous. We understand that we have to apply these things in a way that makes sense on the individual level and at the societal level, which is why Christian ethics is not postulating anything or advocating for anything that's so rigid. An individual, pretty much any space in their life, can't start following that ethical system.
Can I ask Andrew and Zen a really quick question? It's on topic. Andrew and Zen, you both have in the past said that you had premarital sex.
Yeah, that's the word. Sorry, it's economia. That popped up in the chat, so I forgot it. But yeah, economia is what it's called.
Do you what's your honest opinion? Do you think that your marriages are less likely to work out than those of like a virgin who got married because you guys had premarital sex, or you feel like it's the same shit?
I feel like it was a huge mistake to have had premarital sex. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we were in the mindset that we were in when we were having premarital sex, and we remained in that mindset, yeah, it would be likely that our marriages would fail. But I think our situations are similar, where we probably either weren't religious or weren't serious about it at the time, and have since become more committed to our faith. So we can look back and say that, yeah, that was a mistake. It was wrong. We shouldn't do it. And that's what that change in mindset, like I said earlier, is ultimately what is going to save the marriage and save the livelihood, rather than just simply the act itself.
But you don't think your marriage is more likely to end in divorce than a virgin's marriage, correct?
I think according to empirics, it definitely is. But with our change in mindset, I think we still have the ability to save it. But according to strictly empirics, yeah, our marriages are certainly more likely to fail. That's why we look back and say that was a mistake.
Okay.
I got one last question.
We also think, and just to expand on that, we also do think that, your sins do follow you. You know what I mean? Your sins do follow you. Even the secularists understand that to a degree, that the choices that they make have long-term ramifications. And having a lot of premarital sex, usually I don't even hear utilitarians say that that's a good prescription for society. You know what I mean? They always bring it down to the micro and just say, well, it's good for me, but not necessarily a prescription I'd make for everybody. So,
but the gospel can totally reconcile you of that sin with Father.
Totes my goats.
All right, I have one last question for Alex. So, Alex, you said earlier that you for the most part you're kind of against pornography, but can we acknowledge, and I think you probably agree with this, that pornography can only exist in a society that doesn't demonize premarital sex. So if we lived, drastic example, if we lived in a Puritan society, for example, like porn obviously wouldn't exist. Do you see any sort of contradiction there, or are you so in theory, a society that prescribes or encourages marriage and demonizes premarital sex, there's probably not going to be as much porn usage. So do you see sort of a contradiction there? Why or why not? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'm not against pornography. I'm against overconsumption of pornography. Just like I'm not against alcohol, I'm against people over-consuming alcohol and killing themselves or drinking and driving. So, yeah, I'm not against pornography at all, in moderation. In terms of, do I think there's a no? I don't know, because if people are in unhappy sexless marriages, then maybe they're going to be watching more pornography, and then maybe the demand for pornography increases. Typically, what I've seen, and this is kind of anecdotal, but this has just been my observation: the more repressed a culture is sexually, the weirder shit they get into. That's why in like Afghanistan, they're like super sexually repressed, right? You can't have sex before marriage, all these weird rules, but they're into fucking bachi-bazi, which is like having sex with little boys, right? So typically when you really, really repress sexuality, you get really, really weird outcomes. So I'm not for repressing sexuality. I think that leads to disastrous.
Not sure that that's from a repression in sexuality, Alex, or if that's from the fact that there's a bunch of cultural fucking craziness going on within the particular way that they view their religion, just so you know. Not sure that it's due to sexual repression of people who can have like 4 wives, right? Not sure that that's what's causing that.
Like if I had to... But Alex, you have to understand this culture, honestly, if we were to be running this broadcast here and we all lived in the Middle East, in the morning we would be hanging from a crane and they would be parading our bodies around the streets. So I think they're all over the place culturally.
I think also just vibing on the back of what Alex said here, because I was looking at this earlier when I was trying to look for data. A closer analysis of this data shows that participants who self-reported that they were addicted to pornography tend to view a lot of porn and also are highly religious. So, I mean, it seems like this was trying to say that at least religious people reported having like greater porn addiction rates. And then I can't find this, but wasn't it the case that
most people identify as being religious in this nation, almost all.
Well, this is compared to non-religious people, obviously.
Yeah, but that's most people.
But there's a whole shitload of people who are not religious. Andrew, you're being obtuse right now.
Also, wait, hold on. Also, wait, isn't it the case that like I thought that like Mormon porn searches were like especially weird? Am I making that up? I thought that was like a thing that like
dude, porn runs rampant
because they do soaking
everywhere.
and shit like that. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Like their actual like porn search histories were like very extreme compared to like people that might be more sexually liberated.
Look, the point is that if you got a problem with like over usage of porn or whatever, Alex, the thing is that you can only sell a product that people are willing to buy. And motherfucker, there's a lot of buyers in the porn industry, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with your wallet. It's with your viewership, with your mind, with your attention on the porn. That's what you are paying with. Your soul, as we would argue. But it runs rampant in society, so you should oppose it in its current state if you oppose rampant porn usage.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's up to each person to display impulse control and be responsible. I think also, like, technology without moderation, like people being on TikTok for like 10 hours is bad. I don't think we should ban TikTok, right? I just think it's up to each person to use whatever vice they have in moderation. Same thing about alcohol. I think that, some people overdrink, but the solution isn't to ban alcohol. It's for those people to be more responsible.
Yeah, and we're not surprised. I didn't catch the last part where you said as compared to non-religious people, but we're not surprised that you would be tempted, Destiny, by if you're a religious Christian, that you would be tempted by sin. That's kind of the point of the religion, is that we have an innate understanding that that's true.
Right, but why are religious people watching
tempted more
porn
than non-religious people?
Often
no, well, I mean, yeah, why would that not be logical within our worldview?
Why would God tempt the religious man more than...
Why would the devil be interested in you? You're already a coomer.
What does the coomer mean? You've been using that word.
Well, I'm just asking, like, logic, why would the devil be interested in somebody who already, you know what I mean? I don't understand why that's not a logical statement.
I can't speak for Destiny, but I'm not a porn addict, so I don't know where you're.
It says every porn addict ever. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It's a joke.
Also, hold on. Does it ever religiously stated in any of the Gospels or anywhere in the Bible that like more holy people are more tempted by the devil?
Yeah. So this is actually stated by Jesus himself, I believe. I think I can pull it up for you, but yeah, if you're somebody who has salvation and is saved, you're definitely going to be under attack. Yeah.
Well, but like more so than
I got my Bible right here, guys. We could just do this now. Yeah. Which book are we starting?
I actually don't really believe
Take
that.
us there.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you're more holy, like are you going to be more tempted by sin? That just seems strange.
Pedro,
why does that seem strange?
Because the idea that like
Zed's going to get his Bible too.
The idea that you'd be like the idea that you would be like selectively targeted by Satan is weird. I don't know. I've just never viewed sin that
Why
way.
would Satan need to target people who are already in Satan's grasp? I don't understand the logic.
Well, if they're already in Satan's grasp, that means they've already been targeted by Satan, arguably.
Why does it mean that? Maybe they were never targeted by Satan and just happened to reject everything without any influence from Satan
Sure,
whatsoever.
but if Satan
He's got
metaphorically
free
is the
will.
rejection of God, then of course we would say that people that have turned away from God are embracing Satan. When we talk about Satan tempting people, we don't literally mean snakes tempting somebody. We speak of somebody that uses the free will that was granted via Adam and Eve to turn their backs on the teachings of God.
Right. So why would that entity specifically go after people who are already in its clutches rather than double its effort to go after people who are not?
Do you view
If it's a war for souls, wouldn't you go after
when you
the people who already had salvation?
The ones you haven't already
Sure.
captured.
When you think of Satan, do you think of like an actual malevolent demon that's targeting people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I would agree.
That is the enemy, yes. A malevolent demon, a malevolent demonic force.
Okay.
Don't you think it's a little bit more likely that those religious people are just repressing their sexual desires and that manifests in weird ways, rather than like Satan is like systematically targeting them?
No.
I hate to stonewall, but
I have to
yeah,
speak now. I'm sorry. That's not it. What's happening there, the reason why they are under demonic attack is because they are people who produce the gospel, which is something that's supposed to reach people like yourself and Destiny who suppress that gospel, which is the very power to change your heart and reconcile you with God and make you, put you in Jesus Christ. So that's why they're the main target. They're the people who are capable of actually helping people in this world in the most ultimate way possible. That's why they're under attack.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I would like to see that like section in the Bible, but I guess we can move on to the next point. I don't really buy that.
Okay, are we moving on? Or are we going to that section in the Bible?
I would like to move on. We're
It's
going
up
to be
to
here all
Kevin.
night if we keep this up.
I don't have any more. I don't have any more questions. So
Okay. Then
saw
we'll
there was
move
a lot
on to
of
super
super
chats. We'll move on to super chats, and I got the one from Destiny's chat, so I'll start with his first. And I'm gonna go with the first round of the ones that are not questions; they're just statements. Gabriel Abdul, new member. Thank you for your membership, sir, to Destiny's channel for $4. He comments based. Ryan Rockwell, $10. The zero is best argument ignores variables like arranged marriages or hyper-religious types that won't divorce. It doesn't gauge their happiness, just still being married, which means nothing. Do you guys want to respond to that? That seems like a comment towards the right side of the panel.
I just think quickly, I think that's the metric that should be used for the argument, because happiness is just a mental state that, like we spent like 30 minutes saying like, oh, they could be lying about it. So we should use something that you wouldn't be lying about. You can actually observe like whether they're married or not. That would have to be the metric for the argument. But yeah.
Gotcha. Dr. Gonzo, new member for the next 2 months for $20 to members channel. Thank you, sir. The Crucible is a hack show. Here's a super chat for you, bro, concerning Destiny. Thank you for that, Dr. Gonzo, and I hope you repent of your sins and turn to Christ before you burn in hell for all eternity. Sneeko for $5 just got a strike on my channel for election misinformation. That's your boy, Destiny. You need to go after this. You need to help him lick his wounds.
Does that mean 3? Now, wasn't he on 2 strikes?
Destiny, are you insulted? He only donated
Is that 3
$5.
strikes? Is that 3 strikes and he's out, or was that his second strike?
You can get multiple strikes. It depends on you get 90-day periods for them to fall off and shit, I think. So
Comfy.stream does not have election misinfo TOS on it in its guidelines, as far as I'm aware.
Wait, quick question.
Nico, stop clicking on my debate with you.
Destiny, I've been seeing you do a lot of IRL with Nick Fuentes and Sneeko, and I'm trying on my side to do a Crucible the Wild Hunt event. I'm scheduling it for 2025.
Jesus,
trying to get it earlier. Yeah, I'm just planning it out very articulately. Would you like to go hunting? Or you don't even have to take the shot. I'll take the shot.
Is this an assassination joke, or do you mean go out hunting, or what do you mean?
No, real hunting. We're gonna find
hunting deer or something.
Pedro has never had a bad faith bone in his body. Whatever he's saying to you, he actually means whatever he's saying. So, just saying.
Hunting
deer.
I consider it, but you gotta understand from my perspective, that's hella spooky, right?
Yeah, that would be spooky, but
I would say in the forest when one of you comes out, Pedro.
No, it's
What?
gonna actually
You'd
be
be
a lot.
going out
Well,
to the forest with guns and a black guy, Destiny? Is that your problem?
Well, this is
the
the
black
real-
guy
well,
doesn't
this
scare
is
me.
a-
It's the conservative part that scares me. There's
Well,
a lot
the-
of black
the
dudes I'd
thing
go out
is-
to a forest with. There's not a lot of like far right like conservatives I'd go out to a forest with guns. Okay.
Bro, I totally get that. There's this crazy guy named Daryl Davis who goes out into the woods with the KKK, and I'm like, nah,
Yeah, I know
that's
Daryl.
excessive. No, I don't recommend that to anybody.
Daryl is the man, though. I love Daryl.
Yeah, I would say it would be an IRL stream, so you would have all the evidence in the world to say if someone tried to attempt to murder you, so you'd be solid. But you can think about that. S3 for $4.99. It seems the red pill is ultimately a philosophy where men end up being obsessed with the number of times they have sex or orgasm. That's probably to you, Alex. Do you want to interact with that at all and defend the red pill?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I've never identified as red pill. I publicly made fun of the red pill. I've debated people who are red pill. There's some things they say that I agree with, but yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to be obsessed with your lay count. I don't think it should like determine your happiness or how you feel about yourself. So I've never like really been about that.
Bro, cool. All right, and now we're getting into questions that were super chats and specifically. Oh, no worries. So this next one comes from Joe R. and is specifically to Destiny and Alex. Couldn't pornography use in marriage be caused by sexual incompatibility, using porn to escape a partner's displeasure with their sex life?
Could be.
Yeah, definitely.
No one here is gonna, or I don't think neither me nor Alex is gonna argue that porn use can't be destructive. Like there is probably porn use that ends marriages or makes people unhappy or like all sorts of stuff like that for sure.
Gotcha. All right, and these next are to Andrew and Zen. How do you know how a car drives without driving it? How do you know how a gun fires without firing it? How do you know if you like a game before you play it? How do you know if you like a movie before you watch it?
You could learn about it. You could study it. You could talk to other people that know about it or have done it. There's all kinds of ways you could do it. You could learn and know how it works without actually doing it.
Okay, you're a philosophy bro. I'm sure you've heard of the Mary's Red Room or whatever, or Mary's Room with the color red. Have you ever heard of this before about external knowledge?
Like, how do you know what red is without?
Yeah, there's a scientist named Mary. She studies every single thing there is to know about the color red, but she's in an all-white room, and then eventually one day she steps outside and she sees the color red for the first time. Did she gain any new knowledge, or did she already know everything there was to know by studying it? Obviously, there's something to the experience, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like by actually doing it, you're gonna know. You're gonna have the experience of doing so. But the question was, how could you know what it's like to fire a gun or drive a car? Okay, so I guess you can't know what it's like to do it until you do it, but you can learn all about it prior.
Zen, before buying a house, you would probably like tour the house, look at it, right?
Sure.
Before buying a car, you would probably test drive it.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think the same logic applies to.
Yeah, but cars and houses are objects.
No,
I don't consider women, relationships, or marriages or sex objects.
We're not talking about the object of the woman. We're talking about the experience of sex.
If you were like the car dealer, how many times would you let a person test drive the car before it was sold?
For cars on the lot, a lot. What do you mean?
A lot? Just like as many. I mean, you don't think that that's going to depreciate the value of the car? If you
I understand the argument you're trying to
it?
make, but it's just not a good idea, right? Obviously, you're going to let as many test drivers drive the car before you sell a car. Like, I mean, of course you are. Like, sorry, hold on. We got the fucking Mustang up front, but we can't sell it. It's only got 8 test drivers.
Like, wait, I'm sorry, but I'm asking you, is it going to depreciate the value of the car to have 0 miles on it versus, let's say, 25,000 miles on it?
25,000 miles. That's a lot of test driving.
Yeah, well, hang on. Still, my point still stands.
Yeah, if you test drive it 25,000 times, it's probably going to lose some value. You got me there.
To even address Alex's attempt at a gotcha or whatever, you don't know what it's like to own the home until you actually buy it. And I would consider touring the home dating. You don't actually have to have sex with the girl. You can just date her and learn more about her, which would be the equivalent of touring the home. And then you could make the analogy of owning the home is actually marrying and having sex with her, versus test driving the car versus buying the car. These are different things.
Well, personally, I like to.
Car, you're not going to max it out and go 120 in your test drive. You're just going to see if it works and how it feels. And then you're going to test. And then you can max it out if it's whatever. Go ahead.
Personally, I like to fuck the home before I buy it, but to each their own.
Yeah.
Based. And fuck the car too. That's what the exhaust is for. Based.
Yeah.
Next one from Jack Daxter for $10, and this is the final super chat from Destiny's channel. Is sex before marriage morally bad? Why or why not? To Andrew and Zen.
I think we've been arguing that this whole time.
That was the whole point of the debate.
I don't know. Just rewind the debate.
Actually, technically, no. You guys haven't answered that. Is it because especially you, Zen, you try to stay away from like
it's morally bad.
Yeah, okay, because you tend to stay away from like the moral arguments for the.
Yeah. Like ultimately, our argument, like I said in the beginning, is like due to our Christian ethics, but we've been arguing from the utilitarian consequentialist type, empirical worldview as to so if you wanted the answer, just I guess rewind the debate or go read the church fathers or something. I don't know.
All right, we're going to Playing with Fire's super chats. First one comes from Kendra Middleton Williams for $10. Thank you for your donation, Kendra. Kendra is annoyed she wasn't invited to this debate. I hold the position of CON on the subject of premarital sex. Alex, can you tell us what CON?
I don't know what CON means though. Like
Maybe
like
conservative.
Ha! There we go. Now you guys know how I feel about green card marriage. Welcome. All right. Kendra Middleton Williams for $10. Once again, thank you for your donation. Your sexual compatibility argument to support premarital sex being a good thing is dishonest because it presupposes that you're having sex, premarital sex, to find a spouse. No, you're not. You're having sex because you just want to have sex.
I mean, they kind of go one and the same. I mean, like, technically you can date for different reasons, but I mean, like, are you dating to marry or are you dating just to have fun? You could do that with dating or you could do that with sex. Like, if you want to get married to somebody, you could have sex with them eventually because that's an important part of, like, your eventual marital relationship, or you could just have sex because it's fun. But same thing with dating, too. You could date somebody because it's fun to go out and, like, hang out with somebody, or you could date somebody because you're looking for a partner. It just depends on what your goal is with the relationship.
Yeah, it really depends on the person. I wasn't arguing on my behalf. I was arguing in general for a guy who wants to get married. For me, I mean, I don't know. Like with my girlfriend, we're in a pretty good relationship, and we had sex before we started dating. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's just kind of a weird argument for her to make because it really depends on the person what they're looking for.
Are you planning on marrying her?
Damn.
I don't.
Got you a big question.
I don't.
She's listening.
I don't see
right
how it fits the argument, but to answer your question.
Don't answer that, Alex. It's a
Natty. If you're listening, earmuffs. Don't listen to this part.
No, I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm gonna do 5-10 years from now.
5 or 10 years. Oof, that's a spooky
10
answer.
years.
Careful.
There was a point in my life
Alex.
where I didn't want to get married, so I understand it. But I think you're older than me, so I don't know. I hope it turns around soon for you. That's all I can say.
Turns around what? I'm doing really good in life, man.
Okay. Well, I hope this particular aspect turns around.
You know how you could do better, Alex?
Get married.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, Pedro. Yes.
No. There's another thing he can do to make it even better.
What's that? Subscribe to the Crucible?
No.
Go to the woods with you guys?
No. You could come. Have you been hunting before, actually?
Oh my God! Spit it out, Pedro. I want to go to bed, dude. It's
okay. My bad.
Pedro, where's my invite, bro? I actually do hunt, and I'm like,
you do? Oh, so Kevin's totally going. Heck
Something
yeah!
Besides two-legged deer.
It's about to be dove hunting season in Texas.
Let's go. Okay, but you could accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. That's the real thing. That's the real the God pill. Okay, so last question from Playing with Fire's chat, and this goes to the right side of the panel, the Crucible. Why are you pushing marriage so hard for men when the average marriage only lasts 8 years? And the woman who benefits is the one who files for divorce 80% of the time.
Yeah, we're trying to change the culture. Like, we want more people to get married, but we also want to strengthen marriages in the process.
And it's a both and thing. We still think that the outcomes are better even now for men who are married and women who are married and in successful long-term marriages. But we do want the culture to be changed as much as it can be changed in order to bolster that and bolster the family unit and do these types of things. We think that overall that's best for society.
Understood. And we now move to the Crucible super chats. I'm going to run through the general ones first. Peter Moser for $10. Thank you for your $10 donation, sir. Who runs the sexual marketplace? Is that like a cattle auction?
Yeah, women.
Women, yeah.
No one
Would you just-
runs the.
I mean, it's a negotiated thing between both parties, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
Rolo
Mark
Tomasi
Hurt-
runs the marketplace, clearly.
Yeah, jeez.
Mark Hurt.
Yo, by the way,
wait,
Destiny, sorry,
wait,
real
wait.
quickly. I got to plug myself here, but it's true. Destiny, I have a perfect video for you to react to where I completely debunk Rolo, and you should use it for Fresh and Fit. That's the only time I'm ever going to plug myself.
Yeah, I know who you are. You emailed me, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay, got you.
Yeah,
Can I quickly add on, like, just to elaborate? We both said women because generally men have significantly higher sex drives and they'll fuck anything that walks, like figuratively speaking. Where women are a lot more tempered and picky and choosy about who they have sex with. So that's why we're saying, like, women generally control they're the gatekeepers of sex, as we put it.
I don't actually think men have a higher sex drive than women, to be honest.
Okay, well, you're wrong. I don't know what to tell you.
I think there are some
Well,
observations
I
you
don't
can
know
make. Like,
about
I think men are more likely to fuck like randomly, or like people that they might have a less like relationship compatibility with. But I think it's a huge misdirection and a huge misunderstanding to say that women have a lower sex drive. It's hard to measure it anecdotally, but like, I've seen so many like posts on Reddit, so many personal stories of people complaining that like the women are the ones that end up in the sexless marriage. That once they get in, the guy's either working too much or stressed out, or he's just not as like high of libido. And yeah, I don't know. I think women are pretty like sexually driven. It just
Or he's out fucking car tailpipes.
is that what you do, Andrew?
Well, that's what you said. You said it was fucking based. That's what I heard.
I said it as a joke, but it still seems to be on your mind. So I don't know if you're the one replaying that in your head, but there's a whole subreddit for people like you if you're looking for it.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I bet you anything, once we're on this hunting trip, these two guys right here, they're going to be like best freaking friends.
They're gonna be like Nick Fuentes and Destiny.
Where do you guys
Literally.
come up? What is this hunting trip? What the fuck?
Dude,
Move
no,
on.
you're
It's
just
happening,
super best
Andrew.
friends.
It's
What the
happening.
fuck?
It's going to happen. And guess what? I'm going to get the kill.
Dude, we're all gonna be
Kill
best
who?
friends.
Bro, I'm
Yes,
not like
dude.
this. Sounds like some spooky shit.
Well,
I can't
I
wait.
don't want to
We're-
die.
Yeah,
man.
I'm not down
kill
with this
a bird,
hunting
not-
trip either. You're not selling it well, Pedro. I don't know anything about this hunting trip.
You have me sold, Pedro, if it counts for anything. We'll have a moderator only hunting trip.
Exactly. All right. Mark Kurth for $6. BPF, you chain smoke, therefore your arguments are invalid. Seeb, Koth, and rest in peace.
Mic
Every
drop.
night.
You're done. Log
Yeah.
off. Log
Over.
off. You're dead.
Over.
All right, $5 from OG Snoop. It's hard to make a single question for this subject / topic, but Alex has stepped things up in his debate tactics, and Destiny always provides a good argument. Got a fan there.
Thank
there you
you.
go.
Wow.
Good job, Destiny. All right. Tim Zemlich for $5. All debaters should be required to show their search history right now. And I don't know if I'm adding this or it is actually saying this, and go on the hunting trip that Pedro is planning out.
Nice.
I can search. I can show my search history. I have nothing bad on there, but I'm assuming that was a full question.
Got it. Joe R for $9. Only method of approved dating is the courting candle. Does anybody know what the courting candle is?
I have no idea.
I have to guess it's a method of dating where you're courting somebody. You're trying to look for like a serious like marriage relationship every time rather than just like casually kind of like dating around. If I had to guess, but
Dude, I have a bad taste in my mouth of courting because I don't know. Did you see the last episode of House of Dragons where
Please
they were
move
trying
on, Pedro.
to?
Pedro, please.
Okay,
Hell yeah,
Moving
I
on.
did. Hell yeah. I
moving
did.
on. Moving on. Joe R for $19, and this is actually a question to Alex and Destiny. These wants/needs from the left side sound very feminine. I want mind-blowing sex. My wee-wee don't get sucked. It makes me sad. Side note, took forever to pass on the word on YouTube.
If you think that having sex is feminine, then I don't know what to even say to you. I don't think there's anything feminine about having sex.
it's actually pretty gay if you really think about it. When you have sex with another dude, how many dicks has his dick touched? In actuality, probably very few, maybe none. But when you have sex with a woman, you don't know how many dicks have touched her vagina. It's kind of
Well,
the
Nick
gayest thing in the
Fuentes-
world. If you really think about it, it's kind of the gayest thing in the world.
Fuentes would agree with you that having sex
point.
with a woman is the gayest thing you could do.
Yeah, it might
That's why
be.
you
So
guys are
I don't know.
best
Just
Let's go. Yeah, they both
Something
think
to-
having sex with
something to
women is
think about.
gay. Let's go.
Interesting. Next one from Benjamin Thorpe to Destiny and Alex once again. You say premarital sex lets you test sexual compatibility. Isn't it going to put the woman in charge of the relationship and cloud a man's judgment because his sex drive is much stronger?
I mean, it could be if the guy's a dumb fuck, but I mean, yeah, like a woman can make a bad decision because the guy's got a lot of money. A guy can make a bad decision because he really likes fucking a girl. I mean, people get themselves in trouble with this type of shit all the fucking time. Like, that's just part of the power dynamics of dating. Sometimes people compromise, rational decisions because they're after some particular thing. Like, people make decisions like that.
Yeah, I fundamentally reject this idea that women have a much higher sex drive than men. I think that is largely perpetuated by men who are not really having that much sex. And furthermore, I think that you're more likely to make a bad decision when you haven't had sex, like my cousin in that anecdotal example, because all you're thinking about is busting a nut. You're like, fuck, I want to fuck her so bad. Yeah, sure, I'll get married, right? Versus if you're having sex, it's kind of like post-nut clarity. You're a little bit more clear. You're thinking more logically. So, yeah, I so fundamentally disagree with this premises.
All right.
You have a lot of family members for hypotheticals that are available, seemingly, Alex.
I have a big family. I don't know.
Yeah.
Made by Jim Bob for $5. Thank you for your donation, sir. Destiny.
Hi.
How would you test the sexual compatibility of a lifelong commitment before the lifelong commitment?
How would you test the sexual? Just having some sex first is going to give you a greater understanding of what sex post commitment is going to look like. Yeah, that's all.
Pedro, can you pull up the comment by Mr. White? It's so funny. I gotta call this out.
Oh no,
where is it? You gotta send it to me through the private chat.
It's in your chat. It says, Alex, women didn't develop desire to just fuck because they get pregnant, you moron. I mean, this is the problem.
Is so cringe.
This is the problem with having guys who are having no sex talking about sex, and women because they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Yeah, in order for a woman to get pregnant, she has to have a desire to have sex. So yeah, I don't know if this guy has ever been with a girl, but women like sex. I don't know how else to tell you, bro.
Gotcha. Kyle James for $10. Destiny.
Hi.
Hi again, sir. The term sexual compatibility isn't a good label. Clearly, these people have wildly different definitions for what seems to be simply obvious. Do you think we should stop using this label?
That's a good question, Maybe we should have defined our terms in the debate, but I think we tried to, and it didn't seem to go very well, so.
Gotcha. Hey, Destiny, that email earlier, I wanted you to ask yourself, who did it maybe come from?
Which email earlier? About Kevin?
I think he was.
No, I was joking. Yeah. That was just me. That was me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right. Benjamin Thorpe for $5. Alex, so your sexual compatibility, you measure your genitals and her genitals, and it all works out. Then you get into an accident. Now what?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I measure my genitals. I put a measuring tape in her pussy. I measure it. I give it to a scientist to analyze and put together a bunch of flow charts, and then I make my decision.
Same, to be honest.
Okay. All right. Next round is for Andrew and Zen. These are all questions for you. Why stop at no sex before marriage? Why even have a relationship prior to marriage at all?
Well, so we do as God has commanded us to do, which is to enter into a monogamous relationship, advocate not to have sex before we enter into that marriage, not relationship, marriage, sorry, and then multiply, be fruitful, multiply.
And ultimately, like I said, sex is not the only thing that a marriage is or that a relationship is. I would say that's not even 20% of what a relationship is. There's so much more that goes into a marriage that all has to be going well for it to succeed. Sex is just one component of that. So
again, I'm going to stress, I'm sure, again, philosophy terms, you've heard of the thing necessary but not sufficient, right? A tire is probably 4% of an entire car, but without a tire, the car doesn't work. Like, just because sex isn't the biggest part of a relationship or even a huge part doesn't mean that it can't be like fundamentally the thing that makes or breaks a relationship.
It could.
Yeah,
It
but
could.
in this case, the car, it's not going anywhere without
25,000 test drives on it.
Yeah, but it's not going anywhere without the tire, right? So in this case, you can have marriages that succeed with no sex, and we know that this is true. So
you can have
it's
abusive
not-
marriages
so
succeed.
when you're talking about necessary, like that's what we're talking about here.
Okay.
Wait, how do we know that it's true? You keep saying that, but like, I want to know, what is your evidence for that?
Like, there could be marriages where there's no sex, dude. Like, that certainly can be the case.
But you're
But there's
saying
no car that can roll without a tire or without wheels.
Well,
how are you gonna fucking do that?
As somebody that's been super broke before, you can get pretty far on a fucked tire. Your wheel will actually be fucked, but I mean, you can do it. But I mean, I'm just saying, like in the same case, like you could have a dysfunctional car that can roll along with a fucked up tire or rolling on the wheel, the sparks flying and everything. Just like you could have an abusive relationship with a marriage they don't get divorced, but
I would consider good sex in a marriage to be the equivalent value of like tinted windows in a car.
Damn, really?
No, I don't know if I even like the analogy. That's a joke, okay. But I don't know. I think it's a component. I don't think it fails without it, and I don't think it succeeds with it. But I do think it is an aspect of a relationship that matters. It's just not the end all be all. That's all.
Okay.
Now, Kyle James for $5. A question for Andrew: what if you find out your new wife didn't have a vagina when she was originally married?
Sorry.
Once you are married, is it good or bad to divorce?
You mean if you got married under the pretenses that you were marrying a female and then found out that they weren't a female, should you get divorced? I would say that the answer would be yes, yeah.
Not a female, but like, let's say she just has some kind of birth condition where, like, I don't know, her vagina is like really tiny, or she has two vaginas, like a really weird birth defect.
What she has like vaginismus.
I think that's still following under the precondition of you had likely expectations going into the marriage that wasn't the case and that was concealed from you.
Well, but if she doesn't have sex or masturbate.
Well, wait, hang on. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that most people discuss things like this long before they get married.
If she doesn't have sex or masturbate before marriage, she's not going to know if her vagina is like unreasonably tight. Like, she's not going to know that.
So do I think that you should get divorced if your vagina is unreasonably tight? Are there surgeries that can take care of that problem?
Well, I don't know. I guess the person wouldn't know that.
I'm guessing that there is, but no, I think that if that's all that the case is, if there's some condition that leads to that, then that may be a sickness and in health if they had no foreknowledge of that. But these are extraordinary outliers, by the way.
So vaginismus is pretty common. It's not an extraordinary outlier, but okay.
Got it. Benjamin Thorpe for $5. By the same logic, shouldn't you have a couple of kids first and then give them up for adoption if they're not compatible with your parenting? I think accidentally I put that under Alex and Andrew and Zen. I think that's actually a question for Destiny and Alex. So I'll say it one more time.
Obviously there's a bigger commitment to having a child because then the child exists forever, whereas you can just have sex and stop having sex. It's a different thing.
All right. And then we had a couple more come in, but I think I'm going to cut it right here because we're at 3 hours now. And Zen's bedtime. He needs to get a glass of milk and go to bed.
Just read them. Just don't drag it out. That's all. You can read them. Read them.
Okay.
Just don't drag them all out with your hunting stories.
You're going to laugh about that now, but then
read the fucking super chat.
Like, this is the best thing ever. All right. Here we go. How does BPF reconcile his Christian faith with being a hopeless nicotine addict?
What does that have to do with my Christian faith? Literally, the saints of my church have spoken on this. They don't consider it any different, smoking any different than walking through the pews with the device that they use that has incense smoke coming off of it. They see no distinction between the two.
Wait, hold on. Smoking is absolutely a vice.
Okay.
You don't think smoking doesn't apply to, like, if we talk about like being gluttonous? You don't think that smoking applies to that more than just inhaling incense?
Well, you can have any behavior that, if done in an overage, is problematic, and I don't recommend that anybody become addicted to nicotine like I am. The addiction to nicotine in and of itself, and being a slave to nicotine is sinful behavior, but just smoking is not problematic.
That is absolutely true, but you are addicted. You are engaging in sinful behavior when you smoke.
I just said that I'm an addict. I understand that I'm an addict. I understand that portion's problematic, and all I can do is try my best to rectify that problem.
Yeah, of course. But earlier you made an excuse, and you tried to say that it was like inhaling incense walking through pews.
No, I said that's what smoking is. There's a big difference between smoking and nicotine addiction, Destiny.
Okay. Whatever
No,
equivocation,
not ha ha ha. Okay. Is there a big difference between smoking and nicotine addiction, Destiny?
There is, but nobody was talking about just smoking
Destiny,
one time. They were talking about
you.
you engaging in a sinful vice on stream constantly and consistently, and then trying
Then
to say, well,
should
it's
have said
kind
the
of
word
like
nicotine.
inhaling incense. Obviously, they're talking about your addiction to smoking.
It's not obvious what they're talking
It's
about.
quite obvious. Hold on.
No,
Anybody
it's
in
not
here
quite
think they were
obvious.
talking about just the act of picking up a cigarette and inhaling it a couple times?
They could have been.
Well, it seems
That's
like
why
no one
I
in here
brought
thought
in-
that was the
and then-
case.
And then I brought in nicotine.
I just don't care. I hear this.
Can you
so
reread?
much,
Wait, can you
but-
reread the donation?
But you
Wait.
folks
Can
are
you
correct.
can you reread the
They're
donation?
more
I want to hear
wrong.
it. In the donation, did they mention addiction or did they say just smoking once? What do they say in that donation again, Pedro?
Let me see. Let me rewind it back. Happy to see it. Dun, dun, dun.
All right, and then we can just move on because
Yeah, this will be the last question after this.
Uh-huh.
Oh, how does BPF reconcile his Christian faith with being a addict? That's how it was worded.
Oh, so it was a nicotine addict. So why'd you even bring up smoking?
I think when I brought up smoking, it was in relationship to what our church says about smoking, but we went off on a side tangent and argument. Staring down at your crotch and laughing is not doing you any favors.
Well, I would reject the term hopeless. I don't think anybody is hopelessly addicted to anything.
Of course
There's
not.
always a way out. So
yeah, there's always a way out.
I just reject that. So.
Well, let me just add one point. Like,
Uh-oh.
Andrew, you've criticized me a lot for being a bad influence, saying that, oh, your pickup channel is putting men in the wrong direction. Don't you think that you're encouraging men to smoke? Like, don't you think there's some people who are watching your channel who look up to you who might start smoking because they see you doing it?
No.
I've never been.
Alex,
I've
you
never
just got
been-
destroyed. I've never seen somebody get shut down
I
so
don't.
hard by a killer argument before in my entire life.
All right.
What
I think
was
we'll
the
end it
argument?
there, ladies and gentlemen.
It was a question. I answered it. What was was there supposed to be a counter argument?
No, you crushed him. I'm embarrassed at how just with alacrity you dispatched him. That was impressive.
All right, guys, that's all the time we got. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this broadcast. Thank you so much for our debaters. Why don't you shout yourself out one last time before you head out? Zen, you can go first because obviously you look angry.
No, I'm good. Yeah, I'm Zen Shapiro. I'm the in-house right-wing debater on the Crucible. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube. Just search up Zen Shapiro. That's where you'll find me. Also, again, have to re-shout out comfy.stream, which will be launching soon. I will likely be present on there often. And yeah, like, again, it's like whatever. This stuff gets heated and fiery and like we throw these digs at each other, but I do enjoy the debate, and I want to thank Alex and Destiny again for coming on and engaging in it. It was fun.
Gotcha. Kevin, even though you're Mon, shout yourself out.
Yeah, Kevin Ray Wilder. My channel covers philosophy, fitness, and self-development. And whether I like it or not, I'm part of the manosphere, even though I'm mostly critiquing the manosphere. But yeah, go check me out.
Cool. Thank you for that, sir. It would be awesome actually to see you and Destiny talk. I think it would be a very interesting conversation. Alex,
I agree.
Alex, why don't you shout yourself out?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it got heated at times. It was a fun debate. Nothing but respect. But yeah, thanks for having me on. My channel is Playing with Fire, where you can find really good degenerate advice on how you can be a total fuckboy, a coomer, or whatever it is. So if that's what you're into, check out my channel.
Gotcha. Dude, honestly, I have to say, as watching through this saga of debating you, your debate skills have like gone up for sure. So,
I agree with that too. I do agree with that.
I also agree. Guys, by the way, Alex, I can't believe you didn't plug this. You have to plug the Mr. Slave debate that you and I had like a day or two ago. At least
I
watch
didn't
the
want to do
YouTube
it on
shorts,
their
like 60
channel. Like,
seconds.
I didn't want to do it on their channel out of respect for them. But if you guys are cool with it, I can do it.
Yeah, go for it.
Like,
Of course.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, I want to see their reaction.
Yeah, I kind of know what the reaction is going to be. But yeah, me and Kevin, Kevin debated this guy who's like a fucking sex slave to this dominatrix. And she had him, he was telling us how alpha he is. And then she had him like barking like a dog and feeding him dog treats. It was definitely a very interesting quote unquote debate. I'd say it was more of like an entertainment show. So yeah, you can find that on my channel. It's probably going to be the most disturbing yet hilarious thing you'll watch in 2022.
Did you say he was barking?
Yeah, we made him bark. I was like, dominatrix, can you tell Mr. Slave to bark? And she's like, yeah.
Interesting.
He's like,
yeah, Alex has like a YouTube short on it. You don't have to watch the whole stream. It's like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
the short is actually like going viral right now because people can't believe it. Yeah.
Gotcha. And the man who pretty much helped start blood sports, the internet, Destiny.
Hi. Yeah, it's been fun. BPF and Zen. It's always fun screaming at you guys. I enjoyed it. And yeah, have a good one, duders. Thanks for having me. YouTube.com/Destiny if you're looking for my stuff.
Gotcha. Obviously, Andrew, you live here, but words of wisdom.
Come to Comfy Stream. It's going to be a hell of an opening day. Appreciate everybody's time tonight. Always enjoy engaging with the other side. Always have, and I probably always will. So appreciate you guys showing up.
Are you guys like, just curious because this is the first I've heard of this. Are you guys like, are you at war with Cozy or how's the relationship there? What is that?
No, just because Comfy Stream looks exactly like Cozy TV and operates almost identically does not mean we're in any way, shape, or form at war with Cozy TV. That would be ridiculous.
Okay, gotcha.
Destiny, you should plug your debate with Fresh and Fit on Friday.
I should do what with him?
You should plug your debate on Friday with Fresh and Fit.
Fresh and Fit on Friday. I'm bringing I'm bringing a friend and my wife, and that'll be an interesting show. Oh boy,
I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh.
I'll be honest. I think you'll just slaughter them live. So good luck to that, sir. I hope you take their head off. Thank you everyone for coming to this stream. This is the Crucible, Playing with Fire, Destiny's channel. We are so thankful for your viewership. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this. Man, it's getting late. I'm getting off now. I need to go to sleep.
Just like, share, and subscribe. Hit the fucking end button, Pedro.